a day. All right, here we go. Let's set this to record. And we are recording. All right, guys, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Got a lot of cool stuff to show you guys that's in the works. A lot of, as well as some big changes coming down. So buckle up and let's check it out. So we're going to start off by looking at the new galaxy map, which has changed quite a bit. Let me just share my screen. There we go.
So, are you moving forward with the one-way wormholes?
Yes, you'll see that in a sec. Just give it a couple seconds for people to drop into the live feed.
So, this decision was made by your patrons, I'm presuming.
This decision was made by staff, and we held a vote with our Patreons, which were then weighted and yeah, put this together. So let's see. All right, so first off, everything, the first two sectors that you would start off in. So when you start the game menu, you would start off in Sector 1 or Sector 2. Sector 1 has a gas giant and a massive asteroid ring all the way around it. And it also has one planet. So people, when they start, can decide if they want to start on either Sector 1 or Sector 2. It's up to them. This sector will include all the ores that are required to build up to tech tier level 1. So you can build all vanilla stuff and tech tier level 1 stuff in the beginning intro sectors. Sector 2 is very similar, except it kind of has a different feature set. So you have a nebula. Inside the nebula, you're going to have an asteroid cluster that you can mine in and a planet. So people can decide if they want to start on a planet and they want to play the game that way, or they can start in space and they can play the game that way and start building up what they want. There will be in the immediate vicinity, there will be basic NPCs. These are just drones, so they're pretty easy to kill. So minimal threat. The threat will be pushed back so that they don't start spawning until later than they currently do. This will give people more of an opportunity to build some sort of defense before they get attacked. And again, they're just small drone ships, so they're not really a big deal to defend. When you leave the initial area outside of this, say, sectors, this circle, so you go kind of out here to left or right or up or down, then different NPCs will spawn. Either that or it's going to be just a separate section. I'll put like a waypoint or something that will identify where you can go to farm. And what you can farm is, again, up to tech tier level 1 ships. So there is no way to get anything past tech tier level 1 in the starter area. The starter area, that being said, the starter area is completely PvE. There is no PvP in this entire area. So you can take your time, you can build up, you don't have to worry about someone attacking you or anything like that. Um, so yeah, PvE players should like that. Then once you've built up enough and you think you're good to kind of journey into the rest of the galaxy, then you decide what alliance you want to join. So again, alliances are not factions. Alliances are groups of factions. So you can have your own faction, could be a faction of one person for doesn't really matter. Uh, you would apply to be part of the whatever quadrant faction you want to be or alliance you want to be. Once accepted, then you'll be brought into that alliance, and then you go through the wormhole. Once you go through the wormhole, these are one-way wormholes. There's no way back to the starter area to PvE land. So uh, make sure before you go through, you are prepared. Now, once you pick this whatever alliance you want, so let's say Alpha Alliance, for example, so you take the wormhole to the Alpha Quadrant, you end up in the Alpha Quadrant, which is here. So the Alpha Quadrant is potentially going to be made up of 3 separate sectors, Sector 3, 4, and 5. You exit right here. Your exit point is in close proximity to the planet that has the Alliance safe zone. So every Alliance has a massive safe zone in space that orbits a planet, or not orbits, but is in orbit of a planet. And that safe zone, everybody who joins your alliance is welcome to build in that safe zone. So again, you are safe. No one can PvP you inside the safe zone. Your worries about being completely stone aged should be alleviated because you can now keep all your ores and all your vault, keep that in the safe zone. And if you ever get destroyed, you can, go back to that safe area, rebuild a ship, do what you need to do, talk to your alliance members, get them to help you out. They're all in the same area, so they can easily help you out, build a new ship or whatever, work as a team. Um, Once you leave that safe zone, then all other space outside of that safe zone is PvP. So once you leave the safe zone, you can be attacked by anyone. That being said, for the people that don't play PvP or haven't, it is extremely difficult to actually find somebody in space. Space is 3 dimensions. It is very vast. Um, if, for example, if you leave that safe zone and you go all the way out to, you know, the middle of this black area here, you're not gonna see, like, no one's gonna find you. Unless someone told someone where your exact GPS is. If you're in the middle of nowhere space in deep space, no one is going to see you. No one's going to find you. It's next to impossible. Um, so the only time people really find bases and stuff like that is when you are near a point of interest. Now, point of interest is things like these planets, these moons, an asteroid belt, a wormhole, anything like that. Um, let's see. So, anyways, when you pick your alliance and you end up in your safe, coming through the one-way wormhole, you'll then be near the safe zone, which will be marked, which then you can just warp to and unload all the stuff that you brought from the PVE area starter zone. So, you could mass tons of ore, right? And then when you mass that tons of ore, load it all up into cargo, then bring it all over in one massive ship to your safe zone, and then you start in the new galaxy with a whole bunch of stuff. Um, the ore maps have now changed or will change on all the planets. Before, your ore, the game was based on ore progression. So you would have to go to different planets, scope out what planets had what ore, go to that planet, mine it, build up that way. This whole system has been revamped and removed. So now technically every single planet and moon has the exact same ores. And the exact same ores, I mean, they have every type of ore. So neutronium, which is the ore used for exotic tech, chemosite, which is the ore used for tier 2 tech.
Are ore densities the same, or have those been changed as well?
They're the same.
Okay, so moons and whatnot will have less ore density compared to certain planets and whatnot.
Yes. So what happens is, even though every planet and moon has the same ore, or almost the same ore, um, different planets will feature certain ores more. So, for example, maybe Cardassia has every kind of ore on it, but it may actually have a higher chance and higher ore yield, not yield, but ore, um,
Ore deposits.
that's it, ore deposits of, say, deuterium. So now you know, oh, Cardassia, if I wanted deuterium, it'll be easier to find that on Cardassia. I can find it anywhere, be a little more of a challenge. But if I know directly I just need a crap ton of duranium or deuterium, I just go to Cardassia, boom, and I can
Makes
get it
sense.
easily.
Are any of these high percent or high yield planets in different sectors?
Uh, Sectors or quadrants?
Quadrants, sorry.
Uh, every quadrant is designed with for a similar game experience. So you'll see that when we start looking at the other quadrants. Um, so yeah, so that's the orb system. So in addition to that, there will be an asteroid, either cluster or ring or of some sort, in one of the sectors. And this example, Sector 5 has it. And this belt has all of the ores as well. So people that want to live on planets or do some sort of planetary mining situation, they can do that there. It's also a little harder to find someone mining on a planet, or actually much harder to find someone quickly mining on a planet than it is in these belts. However, the belts are obviously, I'm sure you've seen already with the expanses system that they get patrolled, right? And you can be found and attacked. So, but if you
Speaking of planets and gravity, has Obsidious decided to stop being at 3G?
Not yet. I think I did find a fix for that, but
Okay,
haven't gotten to it yet because I've been doing all this stuff.
it's cool, man. I was just wondering, based upon
Eh,
what was going on.
No worries. So, um, yeah, so that's the belts. They'll have all the ores in it. So the advantages of in a belt is that you can mine faster, obviously, right? The ore distribution isn't like thin and long, kind of like it is on planets. It's like you got a massive chunk. If you find that asteroid, you got a ton of ore in one shot. So there's pros and cons to mining on each, right? One's a little safer, a little harder to mine. One's easier, but PvP is more likely to happen, right? So you figure out what works best for you. Each sector has a territory. The home sector has a permanent territory, which means it has a safe zone, which you can build in. It then has a radar around the safe zone for 500 kilometers. So if you are part of that alliance, you will see every NPC enemy show up as a blip on your GPS, like on your screen. So you can see the traffic, enemies incoming, outgoing, random people playing within 500 kilometers of that in that territory. That being said, the other territories, such as in Sector 4, we have a shipyard territory. That shipyard territory also has its own safe zone. So now you have another safe zone, another safe place to build bases and all that kind of stuff. Each territory has a safe zone, has a 500-kilometer radar to find people or to see incoming people. It also has perks. So shipyards have perks where you'll have the ability to produce ships much faster than you would normally. Um, each shipyard is going to be on the outskirts of a gravity well. So this shipyard is on the outskirts of this giant gas giant with these rings. So at the outermost ring, you'll see this shipyard, which you can claim. When you claim the territory, you have to also defend it. So you need to make sure that you can sustain these things. Territories, in order to claim a territory, you start something called a siege. Once you are successful in your siege, it's a lot easier when nobody owns it, obviously. But if somebody does own it, you start a siege, then you have a war, and that war, whoever ends up winning that siege, now owns the territory, and they get the perks such as a shipyard building, faster ships that you can build. Um, Once you do own the territory, you have to maintain it using gold press latinum. So gold press latinum is very useful because for you to run a territory, it costs gold press latinum per hour. So say, I don't know, 5 bars per hour or something like that. So you have to make sure that you have enough stocked up in that grid in order to pay the costs. Otherwise, you'll lose the grid.
Has the initial cost increased, or is it still the same, or has it been decreased?
The initial cost of what?
To start the territory.
Yeah, they're all going to be adjusted. They're all going to be increased, actually. To
Yeah.
start a siege, to maintain the battle in a siege will all be
So
increased.
early on, you can expect that people won't be owning the territories right away. You will you'll have your alliance safe zone, and that will be for everybody to use. That's a permanent. So that's think of the alliance hubs as like the last bastion for your alliance. So you'll always have that to fall back on, regardless of what's happening with invasions. Go ahead,
Yep.
Sorg.
So now, change to gold press latinum or latinum in general. Before, latinum was something that was not targetable. Like it was, you had to see it visually on an asteroid and you had to mine it, right? Now it's no longer available on any planets or any asteroids. Gold press latinum is only available on one planet, and one planet per quadrant. That planet is considered the mine planet. That planet has deposits in it of gold pressed latinum that you can find and mine. By you owning the mine planet, which is another territory, gives you another safe zone, gives you another radar. You have to own it and maintain it with gold pressed latinum. You are able to um, get for if you own this planet, you're able to obviously make sure other invaders don't take it, and then you can mine it, and it's easier to mine in peace and not worry about someone PvPing you because you have a radar and you can see everything around you and what's it being attacked if you're going to be attacked. If you lose your mine planet territory, so in Alpha Quadrant, the ultimate goal is for every quadrant to own all the territories in their quadrant. That keeps the sovereignty of your quadrant to your alliance. If you lose something like your mine planet, that's a really bad thing to lose because now you potentially lost the ability to mine latinum. If you lost the ability to mine latinum, you can't make gold pressed latinum, and then that means you can't maintain your other territories that you may have um,
Will
via
gold
mining.
pressed latinum still be available inside the DS9?
Yes, it will be available to be purchased in DS9 at obviously reduced rates and higher cost.
I was
Um,
see. I was asking because that may be an out for those who are attempting to get their planet back.
Yes, but you got to remember you also have to be able to siege and take over a planet, which means you need gold press latinum to even start that. So if the one planet that you have, I guess you could still mine on the planet if you don't own the planet, right? You just don't have the safe zone and the territory radar and stuff like that. So you could either mine this planet before you own it, make your own gold press latinum, then start taking over the planet. Or you could sell stuff to the trade hub, make credits, buy gold press latinum, and then take over stuff that way. So there's
And
multiple
there's
different
other
ways.
players that will be selling it too. So
Yeah,
there's that make friends.
yeah. I'm sure at some point the Ferengi will come back and will start their business straight up again. All right, so that is that. Then we have our last territory here, the production facility. So the production facility is a safe zone around in this quadrant Bajor. It's in the orbit. And again, gives you a safe zone, gives you a 500-kilometer territory. That 500-kilometer territory, like this is a very pinnacle production. Sorry, give me 1 second. Right. So this is a very important strategic territory because it gives you that safe zone, which is also right by the Gamma Quadrant wormholes. It also is right by your trade hub. That 500-kilometer distance actually encompasses your this wormhole and the trade hub. So if you own this territory, I can see all the traffic going to this trade station on my radar, and I can see if they're a friend or foe and attack them or do whatever I need to do.
Which want to put a pin in that. That'll come into play and be even more important than before later.
Yes.
So does this mean every quadrant will have its own trade hub, or is that the only trade hub that's available?
Every quadrant will have a trade hub.
Okay, cool.
So um, another benefit to this production facility, it gives you a whole bunch of elite assemblers and refineries to use. So you're capped by how many you can put per grid and all that kind of stuff. So if you own this production facility, you can utilize those refineries and assemblers. Then you could also put a base ship inside that safe zone, and you can have your own production facility, right? Like, so you can have copious amounts of production ability by owning that. You also are in close proximity to, guess what? The asteroid belt, which is the most lucrative place to get ore. So now, if you own this facility, it's a quicker flight from that facility to the asteroid belt and back. So less distance traveled, less likely to get hit, easier to run away, etc. So
And equally as important to defend.
Are you going to limit the amount of players, factions per alliance so one doesn't get overloaded versus the other?
um have not thought of that yet, but I
So
think we gotta just
I
I don't
have
know
a
how we can really
couple
limit that.
I have a couple thoughts on that. And so Sigma did that with their alliance system. They had a three alliance system, and they closed off recruitment to whatever the biggest alliance is. I think the problem here with that is that we are playing in a an established theme. And so people have their favorites. And if someone joins the server and is like, I really want to be a Federation member, we don't want to discourage them from playing here just because Federation recruitment is closed.
You
So
could have the wormholes between the quadrants closed for the first couple of weeks until people are actually ready to go quadrant to quadrant.
that's an interesting idea. I think as far as the alliance caps go, the only thing I could see us doing instead of closing recruitment would be the opposite of that, and doing an incentive program for alliances that are in need. So if there's one like redheaded alliance that just can't, get the members and can't get the numbers, maybe we'll do a sign-on bonus that's, and help them along. But I think outside of that, you don't want to restrict people. Like if I come into server and I'm like, I really want to play as this species, and I'm told no because there's too many of that represented on the server, that'd be pretty discouraging, and I wouldn't want to go, well, okay, let me go with my B pick and be a Cardassian instead. So yeah.
If we do see that, and you also have to remember that quantity is not quality, right? So you could have, I don't know, 60 active members in Alpha Alliance because they like to be one of the Alpha races, which is like Ferengi, Federation, Cardassian, Andorian, whatever. Um, but you could decide like they could be, new to PvP. They could maybe are going to play but avoid any contact with any people at all costs, right? Like it
Yeah.
depends how they want to play. So just because that alliance has like 60 members, they may only have 8 members that actually are going to be actually playing like to take over territories and
Like
stuff.
heavy hitters,
Yeah.
industrialists that are like, cranking out a lot of grids and things like that. So, and Federation is going to it's going to always have a higher number uh, because it's Federation, but
Yep.
also, or I should say the Alpha Alliance because it's encompassing of all Alpha. But also, it's going to attract newer players because of the theme of the Alpha and Beta Alliances are more likely to attract newer players than the Gamma and Delta ones just because of their theme.
Yeah, and they're more popular races.
Yeah.
All right. Um, that brings us to, all right. So then let's look at the beta quadrant. Here's your beta quadrant. So in the beta quadrant, again, you got same thing, 3 sectors. Each sector has a main point of interest with the shipyard. So instead of a gas giant this time, this is the remnants of Romulus. After it's been destroyed, it became a black hole. And the shipyard is on the outskirts of that black hole. And yeah, make for some interesting combat when you're taking it over. It's the same deal as the other one. It's just it looks like a
feel
black
like
hole
we're gonna have a lot of accidents over
potentially. um, so again, it's the same deal. You have one sector. You have your point of interest with the shipyard. In that same one, you have your mining planet, which is New Romulus. And with that new mining planet is where you find the latinum, and you have your territory, etc. Then we got your Sector 7, which is another gas giant. Um, inside the rings, the gas giant, you have a cluster or belt. That belt's the same as I described. It has all the ores in it except platinum. You have your planet, so Tiburon. Tiburon is like your Bajor from the one we just looked at. It has a production facility in the orbit. You have a safe zone within 500 kilometers. You have a Delta transwarp conduit and a trade hub. And then across from that is access, a wormhole access back to the Alpha Quadrant. And then ultimately, your entry point when you leave the starter zone, you enter here into the one-way wormhole, or you exit from here to the one-way wormhole. You have Kronos and Praxis. Kronos is your alliance hub. You'll have a big safe zone there that people can build safely. Then we got our gamma quadrant, which again is similar. So you come out of your starter wormhole. So come out of your starter wormhole. You have your founder's planet inside a nebula. Your safe zones there as well. Udera Prime, which is your planet that's just in the area. Like every starter places has an additional planet. Sector 11, you have this cool looking gas giant with blue rings, and their shipyard is in the ring. Then you have your mining planet on Karema, which is your latinum. And then you have your Sector 10, which is your asteroid belt or cluster, Rakar, which is your production facility, trade hub, transwarp conduit to the Delta Quadrant. And then across from that is always the next access point, the wormhole, which brings you to the Alpha Quadrant and back.
Pardon me, but are those rings actual rings made of stuff, or are they just rings for looks?
The rings are made, these rings are just visuals.
Okay,
There's no
I
asteroids
just
in them.
wanted to make sure if there were asteroids there or not.
Nope. Only asteroids are single point to that belt. So it brings everybody into central spots.
All right, much appreciated.
Sarge,
And yep,
the safe zones when you leave the startup sectors and go to wherever, alpha or beta, right?
we can go
Uh,
anywhere. Alpha, beta, delta, gamma. You pick what
okay,
alliance you want.
right. So you have to pick an alliance before you go in to the quadrants.
No, you don't have to. You could go and play rogue and don't join an alliance. It's up to you. However, if you don't join an alliance, you have 0 safe areas.
Yeah,
So you
that's
don't
what I
have a
was going
safe
to
zone.
ask. So the safe zone is owned by an alliance,
Yes.
and there's
Yes.
one safe zone per quadrant.
Yeah, and the alliance will always hold their hub. So there will always have the Alpha Alliance will always have their Alpha hub in their quadrant. So like there will always be that one, even if all the other territories were invaded, let's say, that one will remain. It's non-siegeable, no upkeep.
But a
Yeah.
solo could siege one of the other points of interest.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And to that
And there
fact,
can be like mercenary kind of factions that are just large factions that don't want to be part of the alliance, that want to play that way, is like, pirates or something. Go ahead.
Sounds good.
yeah,
But you
it
don't
just
have it. Can you
it
build the safe zone?
No.
No, but you could take one of the existing ones as a non-allied faction. There's nothing stopping you from doing that
Yeah.
other than the fact that you don't have the support of an alliance. So if you have a group that's strong enough to do it, you absolutely could do that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if the way we're going to be handling alliance ownership is going to be a little different too. I don't know if you want me to talk on that now, but I could go into it a little bit.
You confused me there for a second. I thought you previously said those safe zones were permanent,
They are.
Yes.
They're
and then you
permanent.
said you
Every
can
home
attack them.
no.
So it's
Every home safe
there's
zone
I'm
is
sorry, go
permanent.
ahead.
So
There's a hub. So the hub is where the worm when you leave the starter sector and go to each individual quadrant, there you'll pop out at we're at the hub, like the sector 3 right here on the map. So this shows Earth and this is the wormhole from the starter zone. That is where the alliance hub will be. It'll be around that area. And that will always be in control of the Alpha Alliance.
It's an always active safe zone. The other ones are not always active. It depends
Well,
on if they're
yeah,
owned.
as long as they're defended. Like if you can defend and maintain, the cost of them, then your alliance or whoever the owning faction is will have control over it.
But the Alpha Alliance always active safe zone will always be owned by Alpha Alliance.
Always,
And
always.
always.
same
Yeah,
with Beta, Delta, and Gamma.
that's
Yes.
correct. Yep.
Okay.
So that's the kind of trade-off and incentive, right? Because a lot of people are concerned about being attacked or PvP, and it's scary. So, and being wiped and losing all their work, right? So this is the compromise. It's the
Yeah.
You have a permanent safe zone. If you take your
It's
base
very
ship
big
with
too.
all of everything you own out of that safe zone and you go, you know, on a joyride and you get wiped, that's your fault.
Right. So if you're in the Alpha Alliance, right, but your own faction, does that safe zone give enough space to build your own station? And it sounds like it does from
It's huge. Yeah,
It's huge. It's
so
ginormous. Like if you're on one end of the safe zone and you look at the other end of the safe zone and you won't even see the guy like visually. Like you're
Yeah,
in a
Right.
it's,
So
visual
it's a
you're
distance.
very
you're
big
in your
component.
own faction, but you've joined the Alpha Alliance.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you have your own assets that are, you can set your assets to share with faction or not, but you have your own stuff. Your faction has its own identity. It's just part of the
Yeah.
overarching group, and you get the protection and the teamwork aspect of working with an alliance and using
Who
the safe
makes the
zone.
decision if you're allowed in that alliance?
So that's the alliance leader, and the leadership will be able to be contested with the new system. And it's a very simple way of contesting leadership.
Okay. And
If you
it's the
want to go
same
into
for
that,
all the
Gilly,
other
you
quadrants.
can segue it into the
Yeah,
leadership.
so leadership, the holding faction of the Alliance Hub, obviously because it's a non-maintenance, non-siegeable, has the Alliance Hub has to be handed by an admin to a faction. It's done on the admin
Yeah.
side. So in order for that to have a changing of the guard, like say some leader becomes inactive or something like that, or the Alliance are just having inner turmoil and they want to change leadership, uh, whoever is the majority stakeholder in the territory in their home quadrant, right? So this does not apply to invading forces. Delta can never own the Alliance hub in Alpha. That's never
Right.
going to happen. But for inner alliance turmoils or changing of the guard, if someone is the holding faction of all three, they have to have the majority hold of the territories in that area, and they are de facto alliance leader at that point.
Right. Can you be
And
booted from an alliance?
at the alliance leader's discretion, that is how we've handled it in the past. Yes.
So they have a button to press to kick you out of the alliance.
They kick the entire alliance out or faction out,
Yes.
not
Can,
people.
Right. So they kick a faction out of the alliance, and if you have a base inside that safe zone, what happens to it?
Gets
it's
ejected.
well, if it's station mode, it can't be ejected.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. If it's in station mode, it won't. Yeah,
A-
but you
and
won't be able to get in.
and if there are, you won't be able to get into it. Yeah. And if there are situations like that, that's something that you would pull a ticket over, and it would require some admin intervention. Those situations are not going to arise every day.
No, but
Yeah.
it's kind of delegated, not kind of. From what you just said, it's delegated to the alliance leaders. So there could be interpersonal shit that comes up. No, I'm not saying there's gonna be. I'm just saying there could be. And
There
what
always is
happens to
some
That's
your
in any
shit?
faction,
groups.
right?
Yeah.
Or any team or group
In
environment,
any
you're gonna have
large
that,
group
right?
environment, it's going to have a little
What
bit of.
we could like when we get more into the presentation, you'll see. At the end of the day, if you join your alliance, you work together. It doesn't have to be in contact daily as an active working together, but everything you do is for the greater good of your quadrant.
I understand the
That's
teamwork,
how you think of it.
but
So there are different gameplay loops that I'm going to be going into that
okay,
will block people from progressing in certain things. But you could also have malicious or backstabbing people in your organization,
sure.
and they could do stuff behind the alliance's back. And then if the alliance finds out someone's doing that and they eject your faction, that isn't something an admin would walk in and be like, you can't do that. You
No,
pulled in a malicious act against your alliance, you got ejected, that's fair game.
or
So
absolutely. Let me just briefly explain. Someone like me is more of a PVE minor type of personnel, not a PvP thing. My basis for the question was, can alliances give you orders, go fight here and do that? And if you don't, we're kicking you out. That's why I was asking for what happens. Can you get kicked out? And what
uh,
happens to your shit?
generally an alliance is not going to be like, they're not going to kick you out for something like that. However, if they know, say it's an issue where it's the sovereignty being at stake of your quadrant, and you know that the Delta is trying to invade the mining planet in Alpha, okay?
Mhm.
You'll know because a siege takes 24 hours to start. So once you start a siege, you have 24-hour period to basically get your shit together so that you can fight in a big battle. Now, if the alliance leader says, guys, we've been sieged, I need all hands on deck at this time, you know, bring whatever ship you can, or depending on how late you are in the game, they may even give you a ship. Like I know pretty much like if I knew certain players are not at the level that I need them to be at to defend our base, I'm not going to say, hey, that tier 1 ship you just worked on a month on, bring that. It's going to be cannon fodder because you're against tier 3 ships. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that, or a leader
No,
wouldn't do that.
strong leadership is gonna sacrifice their own materials to make sure that the
Exactly. They're
people
going to
have what they
give you
need.
a ship. They're going to be like,
Yeah,
dude, I
yeah,
just
I
need
get that.
need a human body in the captain's chair. Here's a ship. Help us defend. That's what they're going to do, right?
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
the
Like,
expectation is that
absolutely.
is that
if
he's
you're, you
already
know,
talked
available.
about switching who rules the faction as well based upon votes and whatnot. So if the faction leader isn't doing their job and is kicking a bunch of people, that can be very easily brought up to the bot bins and changed.
Right.
Ye-
And you know, legitimate referendums can be held,
That's
and
one of the
change
reasons.
management can happen, right?
It's one of the reasons why we went from 7 to 4, because in order to create a smaller pool for leadership, and bring more people to the table that can lead alliances. If you have 7 alliances, looking for 7 equal leaders that have the ability to not well, and have the playtime, right? So not everybody has the ability to play as frequently, and you really want your leadership roles to be active in the
Yeah.
community. So it
Exactly.
makes it more manageable having a smaller number of them.
And
Yep.
the faction rules still apply. You have war in your own cargo. Another alliance faction member cannot just come and take that without your help. Correct?
Yes, factions own you personally own your grid. A faction never owns the grid. You as an owner can
Yeah.
open up your grid to your faction, or you can make
Right.
it private, right? But you can never open your grid to an alliance, and unless you do share with all, which means everybody and their mom can,
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to do
you know,
that.
yeah, you don't want
But
to do that.
I mean, you can go deliver stuff to your alliance members if they need it. They just can't come take it without you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and again, the expectation is, guys, it's for the glory and the sovereignty of your quadrant, right? Everybody works
Yeah.
together. So people like you who are like, I like to mainly do industry and mine and mass stuff like
Yeah.
that,
I'll
and
help
do
out the
building,
alliance in that way.
right?
I
So if we're like, hey guys, we're doing a big push. We're going to be building X amount of battle warships. We're massing the fleet, and we're going to try to take over a gamma territory. Then you know that will be announced in like the alliance chats, and anybody who you know is able to help is expected to help, right? Donate stuff to the cause, right? And
yeah.
that's how you contribute. So even if you didn't want to actively participate, or even if you're given a ship or whatnot, like the expectation is that for the protection of the alliance, you know, you have that ability. Also, being in the alliance gives you certain perks where you have like distress calls and stuff, right? So if you're in an alliance and all of a sudden someone's like distress call to the whole alliance, here's the GPS marker, anyone online in your alliance is going to bolt to try to help you, right?
Yeah.
And that's another perk, right? If you're not part of an alliance, you're not working as a whole, then you can send a distress call. It's not no one's going to answer it because they're probably going to
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's a
The
trap,
permanent
right?
safe zone is a huge perk.
Yeah.
There's an adjustment that was made to the distress call recently, though, right? So there's a setting now that you can do it so that only your alliance members see it. Isn't that something that happened?
Yeah, so there's been an update to the distress calls. I'll go through that on a later point and
Hmm.
describe it with you, but you can actually whitelist certain factions. So you can say only my alliance can see distress calls, everyone can see distress calls, or you can whitelist certain factions to see
Holy shit.
distress calls. So I could say that, I don't want my whole alliance to see a distress call. I just want these 5 factions in that alliance to see the distress call. You can do that too. So some cool functionality, but I'll go into a demo of
Okay.
that later
I
on
got
and write up.
2 quick follow-ups.
Okay.
When are you planning to implement the new universe?
Well, we'll get there at the end.
Oh,
I figured that was good.
I want to know.
Have you fixed the whole safe zone turning off issue that we've been having in Gamma?
um, Not yet. I haven't determined what is turning it off because
Oh, I
Are-
do have a question.
Is anyone, patron or non-patron, get their ships brought over from the current universe, or everyone's starting at ground zero, which is
Uh,
fine.
Everyone's is starting at ground zero. However, for the first 2 weeks that we go live in the new world, there will be a brand new starter ship that is not one that you've used in the past that will have uh increased stuff. So it'll come with a warp drive and a warp one reactor, and
Right.
it has different stuff. So it'll help you accelerate the early grind of the game for the first 2 weeks, and then it ends, and then everyone has to just use the basic race ones that you've been accustomed to.
Right. Cool. Thank you very much for your answers.
No problem.
Oh, I wanted to ask. Will we get the phase cannons?
We are getting there.
Okay.
All right, let me
Perfect.
continue, guys. So that oh yeah, we are on beta.
Thank you, babe.
So sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was getting food delivered to my desk.
Oh, so the next one is I thought you were calling me babe. I was like, hey, killing. We're not that close, but
I'm sorry. I usually I mute myself. I didn't. Just deliver me some moment.
I'm just playing. All right, so it's Delta Quadrant, same difference, right? You start off, you jump, you take the transwarp back to Delta. Delta will be a transwarp, not a wormhole, even though it looks like a wormhole. Again, still work in progress. So you take the transwarp, takes you here to Devor, which is not called Devor anymore. It's called something else. Vadwar Homeworld. I forget what it's called. But this will be the Delta Quadrant starting area. Safe zones here.
Vador
Your one
homeworld
moon.
is Vador Prime.
Vadwar Prime. All
Correct.
right, let's do that. Vadwar. Is that how you spell it? No. Well, I'll fix the spelling later. So here you're at Vadwar Prime.
It's
Safe
2 A's in
zone.
the beginning,
Oh,
and I think you got it, but I can't really see that from here. But yeah.
So again, that's your starting area. Then you go to your next sector, which then has your gas giant. This is actually a pretty cool gas giant. Not sure if you guys have played with it before. It actually swirls and stuff like that, and there's different layers that you can kind of go into, and actually gravity gets bigger as you go in. Um, the shipyard will be in the ring. And again, you have Malon Prime. Malon Prime is the mine planet which you find Latinum on. Then we got Sector 14, which is going to be a blend of Borg space, 2 Borg planets, your production facilities on Kiana Prime. In the 500-kilometer radius, you have your transwarp to the Beta Quadrant, you have your trade hub, and you have a transwarp back to the Gamma Quadrant. And then you have your ore. So one thing to keep in mind here is um, oh, so NPCs. NPCs are being revamped. All new models are being built courtesy of Dema and Killing. They've been putting a lot of work into these things, making them look great, but not only look great, but also more on the functional side. So they're actually going to be, you know, um, I guess harder to kill is relative to the person, so I can't really say harder to kill, but they're gonna be
More dangerous.
Can I speak on this just for a second on the
sure.
okay. So right now we have first of all, with the layout of the NPCs, more fleshed out internals. So they're the internals are designed not only to look nice but be more functional. So that if you get a clean kill on one of these ships, it may be something that you want to fly. Unlike and we're trying to set an example for building, and I've always felt kind of bad about the fact that the NPCs like the Valdor seems a little rushed on the inside, and there's conveyor spam and gyro spam when we say, hey, don't do conveyor spam, don't do gyro spam, but then we have NPCs that have it. So this is part of, like, trying to set an example by doing, right? But also these NPCs, because the internals are a little bit better laid out, they're going to be a little tougher. But to counterbalance that, in the difficulty of the NPCs going up as a whole, is more tiers for a better, like, more steady progression. So right now we have like the Reliant, which is all, for example, is all enhanced tech, right? And the first time you kill a Reliant, it's hard. But then after you kill a Reliant, you can kill multiple Reliants and you have access to a fair amount of enhanced tech. But the first time you kill a Valdor is another progression wall. So the jump in difficulty from a Valdor from a Reliant to a Valdor is pretty large. You have a lot more shields on that ship. You have proficient phasers, and you have photon torpedoes now to deal with. So and that's the step up. It's from that enhanced tech ship to a rare, and then from the Valdor you have a Vorcha, which is a whole nother ball game. That's quantum torpedoes. They are much, much, much harder. So the goal here is to have, instead of three different tiers, or I guess four if you include the little shuttles, is to have like 6, 7 tiers. And so what this will do is make a more steady progression. So you'll have vanilla ships, you'll have vanilla enhanced, mixed, and then you'll have your enhanced tier, and then you'll have an enhanced and rare mixed tier, you'll have a full rare tier, a rare exotic tier, and then an exotic tier, so that there's a little bit of a more steady progression and not so many walls. You'll be able to go to these different areas where they spawn, and be able to kind of with some certainty know the difficulty level that you're getting into.
Quick question on NPCs as well. Will they still be continuing to violate the grid limits that we have?
No, all the NPCs are being created with the grid limits active while we're creating them. So
Okay, good.
Certain
So very few
NPCs,
reactive.
certain NPCs will violate the grid limits.
a little
Not,
bit, but not as
not
much as they were.
Yeah, and not so much but like mainly bosses, right? A boss is not going to stick to the grid limits because they're supposed to be
Understood.
really hard to kill, right? So they may have an extra 10 phasers where, like, that's impossible for someone to do. That's not an NPC. But generally, all NPCs are being designed around the same block limits that you have. It's just the bosses or special events and stuff which will not follow that rule.
That's fine.
Right.
It's just as I said, capturing and breaking the shields of certain NPCs that are currently implemented that have more than the amount of reactors we currently have is just annoying at this point.
Yeah, so there are going to be admin reactors in these grids.
Yeah.
It's going to be less of them in the lower tiers, and each tier you go up will have an additional admin reactor. The reason for that is that the NPCs come one at a time, and you can group up on the NPCs, 5 players, 10 players, whatever. So it's to give them a little
Oh,
bit of an artificial.
I don't mind the admin reactors. Those usually output around the same as a warp one or enhanced
Yeah,
one. I'm
it's not a
talking about
significant
I'm talking
difference.
about let me see. I think it's the Rubicon Mach 2 has an extra like two of the tier 2 tech reactors on it, and that actually significantly bumps up its shields.
Huh. So we're using a formula for the across the board for the NPCs. So all the NPCs that are at, let's say, tier 2 or tier 3 level will have a similar loadout, like very, very similar. There may be like slight variations, but you can expect to see, if you fight a Romulan tier 3 ship versus a Klingon tier 3 ship, you can expect it to feel about the same.
Yeah.
And like I said, tier 3 at this point is no longer exotic. A tier 3 ship is actually, let me look at my list here. Hang on one second.
It's Is it
So-
vanilla
Is tier 4
common?
tech a thing?
Yeah,
now?
so we have tier 0 is like your vanilla. Tier 1 would be your vanilla enhanced mixed. Tier 2 is your full enhanced, and then tier 3 would be in your enhanced rare tech mixed,
You,
and then
you know what,
so on
Killing?
and
We
so
should
forth.
probably let's use a different term than tier because it's going to confuse people. They're going to think a tier 3 is a tier 3
That's
tech.
You could call
that's
them,
for
you
my
could call them
design.
NPC stages.
Yeah, or stars or whatever.
Yeah,
We'll come up with
we'll
something
make some
better.
sort
I
of
I
rating.
have it called tiers just because it's working
Level
for my
works.
layout. But yeah, level, that's fine.
Level.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then they each tier will have slightly better modulation towards energy. But as far as like the amount of weapons and reactors that are allowed, they've all been standardized. So you should, when you look at the threat level, like you see the stars on the name, that will have more meaning than before. Like if you fought a 4-star ship before, but this is a different 4-star ship, like a different model. You should be able to know with some level of certainty that like, okay, I've fought a 4-star before, I can handle this shit.
All right. So, next up on NPCs, if you guys look back at the screen, so each of these quadrants, each of these sectors have point of interest, right? What we're going to be doing is locking NPCs down per radius of these sectors. So within sector 3, we'll probably say like every, you know, these are all pretty close together. So this would be like one bubble, and in this bubble of this sector, certain NPCs will spawn. So since this is Earth, eventually we're going to have more and more NPCs. So we'll have themed NPCs eventually, where we have like Federation ships in the Alpha Quadrant, or Orion ships, or sorry, Andorian or whatnot, or Vulcans running around. And then in Beta, you'll have like Klingon, Romulan, etc. So we'll have themed ships like that to fight. So based on your quadrant, you can kind of get a different feel. But more importantly, we're locking down the spawns to the immediate area around points of interest, which means that if I warp out to like here, like I don't know, say in between sector 3 and sector 4 in like deep space, there'll be nothing. Like I can build a starbase there. I don't have to worry about being attacked by an NPC because it won't be there, because NPCs are now only in uh, near points of interest.
Which also means that you could be on the outskirts of sector 3 anywhere in that bubble, and you won't be in range of spawns. So people can home sector in
Mhm.
like so instead of having NPC free zones, you will be able to build anywhere in sector 4 away from those points of interest. Same thing with 3, 5.
Yeah.
So there'll be many more places to hide from players than the previous iteration allowed for.
Yeah. And
And
we
NPCs
haven't
simultaneously, NPCs hiding from them.
so we I haven't really decided yet 100% on deep space. Um, it's still up in the air. Deep space may have an amalgamation
Yeah,
of
chasing
spawns.
NPCs kind of seem nice for deep space because that's supposed to be an intermission space that ships are going through, especially for us hunting them or them hunting us.
Yeah. So deep space may be I don't know how I'm gonna do it yet, but I may open it up saying all NPCs can spawn, period, in deep space. So you get a mixture of beta quadrant, delta quadrant. So you can experience everything in deep space. And then around the immediate points of interest like Earth, Luna, this Ferenginar, shipyard, these would have their own zones that would have NPCs around them as well. But if you went, say, to this corner here in Sector 4, just under the word Sector 4, it's big black area. There's nothing around there, so that's going to be probably a spot that you could potentially build something and not have to worry about NPCs because it's not near a point of interest.
Cool.
And
What's
that's where
the
your
block limit?
Nana
PCU limit?
80,000.
80,000 has not changed.
That's 80,000 PCU
Mhm.
Yes.
and block limit.
Block limits vary by block.
So like armor blocks are 1 PCU, but then like
No,
tanks.
I understand that. And what I'm asking is there a block limit, number of blocks?
No, there's no number of blocks that you can put onto a grid. I
Okay.
guess you could think of it as your absolute block limit is 80,000 because if one block costs one a PCU minimum,
Yep.
then yeah,
Yeah,
80,000
I'm
would be
good
your
with you. Okay. It's
Is there
based
a
on
number
PCU.
of grids limit?
no.
No.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. So that was NPC.
Oh, so
Oh.
on the regional spawns, so we are working on themed for each sector so that you have regional, like you fight uh Klingons near Quonos, or you fight Romulans near Romulus, Federation vessels near Earth, Ferengi vessels near Ferenginar, Cardassian vessels near Cardassia. I expect us to have a lot of them done by the launch time. There will be more trickling in. You're gonna expect, you should see like probably in the realm of like 30 NPCs to choose from at least. There's gonna be a lot more variety than before, and hopefully we'll bring back some old ones that got removed.
All right.
Can I ask one quick question about the NPCs?
Sure.
I don't know if anybody's really ran into this type of issue with the sieges and all that. Is there a way that maybe around the siege areas that there's no NPC spawns? That way, when you do a siege, you don't have to worry about NPCs attacking at the same time. Does it kind of make it a disadvantage to whichever side that if an NPC is targeting that particular side, now you got to deal with not only the defender or the attacker, but also the NPC now attacking you too.
I think that it's just about positioning at that point. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
work
Yeah,
out of
because
the range of that to
NPCs
the
will
other
attack
side.
whoever's close.
Yeah, but
You're
whoever,
gonna have to create
and
some create
whoever they
diversion.
attack, they can easily divert that attack to the
they're
enemy.
they're not
too,
going to
so-
stick to you like glue. And plus, if you're in your squadron of warships for a siege, and you're, let's say you've got 10 ships that are involved in a siege on your side alone, an NPC is not going to be like with your whole squadron of warships. You're not going to be concerned about a single NPC, even a top tier one. You're going to just mincemeat it because
Yeah.
you're in combat fleet,
You're in a fleet.
and
a
everybody's
fleet versus
at
one.
arms. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're just gonna bash that NPC's brains in real quick and
The
continue
fleet
his
commander will
thought.
go on comms and just be like, everyone focus fire on this one
Well,
ship, and it
oh
disappears.
no, I understand that, and it would be an easy takeout, but that's still if you're on a 10 versus 10, say, where everybody's kind of equalish, and then an NPC comes in, whoever that NPC is targeting now has to detour their resources that would be against the other opponent to that NPC, which could be the difference between winning and losing.
Look,
It could
we
be, but then
actually
that's up to RNG, right?
we
So at the
actually
same
had to deal
difference,
with
it could
this.
affect them. Like it could
And
hit
that,
the defending party, not the opposing party.
yeah, it depends on who, but I'm just saying that could be an issue to, like, we would have won if it wasn't for that damn NPC spawning in, or we could have defended if that I'm looking at the possibility of a conflict because of that. You know what I mean? People
Yeah.
get pissed off. That's what I'm looking at.
Well, unfortunately, there's no way to stop an
Well, I
NPC
mean,
from spawning.
if you're
in
putting a bubble around where they can spawn, is that easier to do than putting a bubble in where they can't?
that,
Yeah, so
you
that's
can't.
create,
I
That's
mean,
a
I don't know that.
limitation. It's a limitation of NES. You can't make a no spawn bubble within a spawn bubble.
yeah. So
If
we
they're
can
gonna
we
rage
can
quit
make
over
Gotcha.
an NPC causing a flip in a battle, they didn't need to be playing anyway. That's my
yeah,
opinion.
but I honestly don't think that any NPC is going to be able to stand toe to toe with a fleet of player ships. Like they're just gonna like burn that thing down. Plus, a lot of times when you hit remote control blocks on NPCs, they kind of just drift off in a single direction anyway. So I mean, it's about positioning at that point. I don't think it's really gonna sway the tide of a battle. Maybe
I-
like early sieges before everybody's like fully elited out, but once the game progresses, that scenario becomes kind of like I don't
Well,
know.
I'm just talking about the bitching that comes after it.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
they'll
bitch
always
for
be
what
bitching.
you
That's
do.
what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. There's no way we
That-
can cover every base,
Okay.
and we're within the limitations of what we can do, and unfortunately, that's something we can't put denial zones within spawn zones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Speaking
understood. All right,
of
I just thought I'd ask.
speaking of NPCs running the hell away, have we fixed the portion where they get up to 600 meters a second when they're way too goddamn big?
I think that's an Equinox issue only, right? Is that
I think that's an Equinox only issue,
yeah?
but like,
It has to do with relative speed, and the Equinoxes
Vortex
are
did that to me.
relatively.
Vortex has done that to me.
yeah, a couple of Orches have done that as well.
I've never had
Yeah.
a Vorcha hit over like 210 running away
Well,
from me.
part of the NPC grid rework is the logic, the actual mod and AI itself is going to be reworked. That has not begun yet, so I can't talk towards if it's been fixed or not because I
Okay.
haven't even looked at it yet, to be honest.
Okay,
But it
now
is
you got me
done
thinking
for it.
about
on the
what
docket.
about the AI update that's actually coming to space engineers?
That's not
That's
Nexus
been-
friendly at this point, so it's not available.
Okay. Okay.
Hangars, the quantum
Alright.
hangars, ship's still gonna spawn where you hangared them in.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So I want to talk to you guys now about a couple gameplay loops. So we talked to you about endgame gameplay loop regarding the territories, right? And protecting the sovereignty of your quadrant, working together, all that kind of stuff. So there's a new thing coming, a new gameplay loop. I will show you if I can figure out why my mouse is doing that.
Thank you.
There we go. All right. So we got 4 quadrants, right, guys? 4 quadrants, alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Each quadrant will have a special component that is only available by purchasing it from a trade station. The component, so such as the alpha component, we'll call it, the alpha component let me go back a bit. So each quadrant you think of it as controls the technology to a certain weapon, endgame weapon. So alpha quadrant is phasers, beta quadrant is disruptors, gamma quadrant is deflector array, delta quadrant is phaser cannons. Which means that if I live in the beta quadrant, I'm a beta quadrant person, and I want to build tier 3 exotic phasers. I cannot build them with exotic tech alone. I need a special component that I need to buy with credits from the Alpha Quadrant Trade Hub. I buy it with credits, then I can take it back home, and then I can use it and build my phasers. The same thing for Beta Quadrant. If I live in the Alpha Quadrant and I want to build tier 3 disruptors, I cannot. I need to get a special component that is not you can't create it. It's only purchasable, and you would have to go to the trade hub in the beta quadrant to go purchase it, and then you are able to build that. So that gives a special reason for transport from quadrant to quadrant. It also helps people who want to start their own kind of stores or stuff on the side. They could buy and mass these things and then sell them to people because if they want to build that area of tech, they need that component. If I was say Alpha Quadrant is currently at war with the Gamma Quadrant, then I'm not allowing any Gamma Quadrant people to come into my area and buy any of that stuff. I'm going to set up base defenses, missile silo, phaser turret silos around that trade hub. So any ship that goes there is going to be attacked by my security system. So I can protect my trade hub from anybody I'm at war with.
And if you have the production territory, you have radar around the hub or the trade station.
Right. So you can see those guys incoming. So that um, that would mean that potentially, if how long the war is, Gamma Quadrant could be starved out of all their components and not able to make phasers at a certain point. So at a certain point, they're stuck to make using disrupt like tier 2 phasers because those are still open to be made, or they would have to just use tier 2 phasers and beta and disruptors or something if they get their hands on that tech. So yeah, different elements of gameplay in that sense. Different tactics you can use in war, starving out your employees, your opponents. Now, in addition to that, one of the concerns in the previous economy was that it's hard to get to mass credits, right? So people need money to make money type thing. So one, all the store amounts that like there's a limit to how much you can sell at a trade hub. Those limits are going to be raised quite a bit, so you'll be able to sell larger quantities per hour of materials. And in addition to that, there is going to be special trade items that are located in each of the trade hubs. So
Are you
let
going to
me give
fix
you
the
let me give you an
issues with
example. So if I wanted to go on just a convoy mission and I wanted just to make money, buy and sell, buy low, sell high, right? Um, I would say start at the Alpha Quadrant. I'd go to Deep Space Nine. At Deep Space Nine, I would go buy as many self-sealing stem bolts as I can. And then I would take those self-sealing stem bolts to the Beta Quadrant, where then I would go to the trade hub in the Beta Quadrant and I would sell them. And once I finished that loop, I would I would make X amount of money, right? So, and then since you're at the Beta Quadrant, I can then buy some Beta Quadrant stuff, and then I can go to say, Delta Quadrant and sell some stuff. So there's different ways you can uh, buy and sell those goods to kind of make money without having to just mine or sell the ore. You could buy trade goods, bring the trade goods to another trade hub, and then sell it there to make your money. Obviously, the more you buy initially, the more you can sell. Each quadrant has their own iconic item. So Alpha Quadrant, you'll be able to get self-sealing stem bolts. Beta Quadrant, you'll be able to get Klingon blood wine. Gamma Quadrant, you'll be able to get Ketracel white. And Delta Quadrant, you'll be able to get Delta Quadrant data course, Delta data course. So another example is if I say I'm in Delta Quadrant and I buy, I don't know, 100,000 data cores. One, I got to make sure I can actually, the weight is a factor, right? Not just space. They could be really heavy, which means that now your ship that goes 45 kilometers a second now is doing 10. So now you're slower. So you got to keep that in mind too. But anyway, say I buy data cores from the Delta Quadrant. If I sell it at the Beta Quadrant or the Gamma Quadrant, I will make, I don't know, say 10% profit, okay, by transporting it there. But if I bring it from Delta Quadrant to the Alpha Quadrant, since that's the furthest distance, I'll make 25% profit or something like that. So there's the distance traveled is also incorporated in how much money you'll make from your little journey of convoy transport.
Yeah, and
So
each one so like is specific. So if you buy a Delta Quadrant trade item, you can't sell it in the Delta. You can only sell it in the other three, and so on and so forth with the other ones. Just in case you didn't clear
yeah,
that up.
you can't buy blood wine and sell blood wine to the
Yeah, it's a
unless
trade loop. It's meant to
yeah
promote travel. Yeah.
yeah. And again, that trade loop travel changes based on war status, right? if
And- yeah.
if Alpha Quadrant's at war with Gamma and Delta, or Gamma and Beta, then guess what? They cannot trade to them, so they're stuck in their own little sector, right? There is no connection between Alpha and Delta. You have to go from Alpha to Gamma, Gamma to Delta, or Alpha to Beta, Beta to Delta. There's no Alpha to Delta, which also makes strategies for alliances. Like who do you align yourself with? If I am in the Alpha Quadrant, ideally, right, if I'm an Alpha Quadrant, I would want to make an alliance with Beta and Gamma. I want them to be my friends. And this way it locks out the Delta Quadrant, because now Delta, if Delta is to ever attack me, well, early game we'll say, or early mid game, then they would have to go through Gamma or Delta or Beta Quadrant and then get to the Alpha Quadrant. So they got to get through someone before they get to the Alpha Quadrant. So as an Alpha Quadrant, I would want to have those two as my friends.
I've got a pretty big question for you.
Sure.
Given that there's these trades right now with this gameplay loop that you've created, what's to stop particular players from just going around and blowing all these trade ships up for no reason?
You can. It's PvP. So if someone's doing a trade, that's the risk of doing courier runs. So if you are
Alright.
doing a trade loop, you could be attacked. But then that's also your responsibility of your quadrant, your alliance as a whole, to protect that, right? So let me give you an example. Deep Space, if I'm in the Alpha Quadrant and Deep Space Nine is my Alpha Quadrant trade hub, right? I want to protect Deep Space Nine. So what I would do is build multiple bases or stations or phaser turrets or something all around that station, separate grids, powered individually, shielded individually, as protection. So then if I have a pirate from the Beta Quadrant that comes in that we're at war with, he can't just run right to the trade hub, kill somebody, and then leave, because he's
That's
going to
what
be
I'm saying.
attacked.
There's going to be neutral parties that just run around killing people.
And they're not going to be neutral parties because they would be flagged as red, and then they would be attacked by your defenses.
So how does one become so if you attack a neutral grid, you are automatically flagged as red?
Oh, so we're not doing forced whites or war enable on the new iteration, so everyone will be defaulted red.
Yeah,
You have to
everyone
propose
is your
force.
enemy until proven otherwise.
Okay, so it's
Mhm.
not okay. There is no default white. Okay, that makes
No,
things a
that's
little
just-
bit different. That's better.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for that is because of the way the alliance hubs work. We need everybody to be assumed an enemy, and so that alliance members can share the hub.
Okay, that also clears up the whole neutral PvP, PvE fucking shit.
Targeting
that was actually
neutrals and bullshit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that won't
that's
be a
what you
thing
have to worry
anymore.
about
that was
anymore.
a big fucking.
Yep.
What the hell's going
Yep.
Is
on?
there any
Eh.
trading outside of the hubs?
There's no trade hubs run by the server. Doesn't mean there can't be community trade hubs. Like
Yeah.
if Ferenginar wants to create a trade economy of their own, they can do that. Or if anyone in particular wants to do that, you're more than welcome to. But just remember that those trade hubs come with,
Right.
Well,
they could be attacked unless you put them in a safe zone.
and the thing too is you could put a trade hub in a safe zone, and all your alliance members would have access to that. So you could run shops inside these safe zones, and that's just an added benefit of actually holding these
Yeah.
territories.
So you could do an alliance-based trade hub and then put it into a safe zone, and then your alliance can access that trade hub and buy and sell from you. But beta people wouldn't be able to enter that safe zone, obviously.
So
Another
the trade hubs that are there are not in the alliance safe zone.
No.
They are in the territory, so they're in the territory of the production facility. So if the production
They
facility
can
is
be taken over.
just the territory, not the so the safe zone
Yeah.
is a smaller bubble, and then the territory radar is 500 kilometers.
Right, but that trade hub could be taken over.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So that
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was going to move along just because we're running out of time.
Yep.
Well, can I ask one quick question? Are you going to be getting to the wars between alliances coming up?
How so?
Well, you mentioned about that. If you're friends with, the alpha's friends with the gamma or whatnot. How are we like? Are they still going to be red if you're an alliance, or is there going to be actual, treaties to where it turns them white so that our
Treaties.
defenses don't attack them?
Yeah, there's
Treaties.
even
Everyone is
alliance
red off the
leaders.
bat. The alliance leader would say that you're at peace with this other alliance, and then those the alliance and the factions within that alliance will be white.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
actually, as an alliance leader, I'm pretty sure there's a command that will force your whole alliance to be at peace with certain factions. I believe that's a part of the alliance system, if I'm not mistaken.
Factions or
Yeah.
alliance? Can we do an actual, like, if the alpha and gamma decide to be an alliance, I could do the entire alliance, or do I have to do each individual faction?
I'm
I'll get
pretty
there.
sure as an alliance leader, you can make your alliance all white with another alliance, so you're not at war.
And that
And
means
then
all the
and
factions in that
also,
alliance
I
would
believe
also.
it also works the opposite way. I have to double check, but I believe it works the opposite way as well. If I,
Declare
as an alliance
hostilities.
leader, say I declare war with the Delta Quadrant, then Delta and all factions in the Delta will become red.
Yeah,
Okay.
unless I'm the alliance leader and do it through the K menu, so I go and manually declare war on a specific faction as the alliance leader, then that will only affect my faction. But if
Yeah.
I do it through the commands, it goes alliance wide. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
Right.
sure that's
That's
it.
when-
All right. All right. So that is yeah, that's the new
Oh, I wanted to
Galaxy.
mention one thing before we moved on from because we were talking about safe zones. That's what I was going to
Mhm.
say. Also, these safe zones. So the three that are siegeable in each quadrant, there's a 24-hour countdown before the siege is available. So if you guys have like infrastructure put into these safe zones, like production bases and things like that you don't want to have at risk if you're like an industrial, so not a PvPer, you have a 24-hour window to basically mitigate your risk and move those grids out. So you can move them out of the bubble if it's going to be under siege, or you can hanger them, or whatever you need to do to mitigate your losses. That's something that you'll be able to do. So even though these safe zones are not technically always safe, you do get 24 hours to prepare for it to potentially go down.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. You can move on now.
No worries. All right. Yeah, okay. So that is, in a nutshell, the new setup of the Galaxy, and the concept between trade loops and other stuff. Of course, as things progress, more and stuff will be added, guys. But obviously, this is a huge undertaking and of rework that needs to been that is being done. So obviously, we can't have everything all at once. But this is gonna set us up for success, long-term success. It keeps progression is not as grindy, which is one of the biggest complaints. It allows people to build safely. Some people don't care about tech levels, and they're just like, I just want to build big cool ships and you know show it off in my PVE area. So yeah, you can still do that. There's no one is going to push you to go from the starter sector into the rest of the galaxy. That is up to you. You can stay there forever if you like. If you want to join the rest of the galaxy and enter in a whole new way of playing the game, which is good, should be very exciting because you know everyone working together, protecting the sovereignty of your quadrant, you know, territories, all that kind of stuff, working together, creating fleets, between your alliance, attacking other players, not only players but sieging other territories and stuff like that is huge. Um, oh wait, there's one more thing I want to say. So, in addition to all that, there's another gameplay loop, and this is a very big one. So the ultimate end game is every territory will have a special assembler. that special assembler is the only thing that can create continuum tech. Continuum tech is the final tier tech in the game, beyond tier 3. Continuum tech will build you pretty much OP shit that is going to take you to the next level. Now,
not to be confused with like tier. There's not going to be like a tier 4 thruster and tanks and things like that. It's not going to
no,
be just an additional tier. It's going to be for specific items that fill certain niches, special items that you haven't seen before.
yes, special technology, Star Trek technologies. For example, Continuum Tech will feature cloaking drives or the heat sinks for the cloaking drives. Cloaking will be a thing, and cloaking is available at exotic level. So exotic tech, you can cloak your ships, but you can only cloak your ship for like 30 seconds and then it decloaks. But if you use continuum tech to build heat sinks, you can extend your cloak to like 15 minutes or something like that, so that you can basically cloak longer, right? I could cloak, turn on my warp drive, boom, travel at invisible to radar, which is huge. That is something that's going to be available. That's continuum tech only. Transwarp drives. So that is Borg technology that allow you to instantly travel. So now I don't need to go wormhole to delta to transwarp conduit. I can instantly go from alpha to delta instantly because I have a transwarp drive. Now transwarp drives, obviously they're large. They're going to be a lot of power to charge. They will take like half an hour to charge, right? But you got to think, I can instantly go somewhere. So I could teleport, I could instantly go to another quadrant. While I'm in that quadrant doing what the hell I was supposed to do in that quadrant, it's charging, and then I can just go back to my base. And I skip a lot of that. Plus, there's tons of strategies. You can use a transwarp cloaked in, right? You can, there's just tons of stuff we'll get into later. But so
It
yeah,
opens up a lot of other opportunities.
there's so many
Uh,
different ways to play the game with these
Transwarps
stuff.
will be so all the continuum tech is going to be time gated by how many territories you hold, and the territory assembler will be crafting these slowly, and it will cost exotic tech to craft. So there's a large exotic tech sink to create continuum. So not
Right.
only will you need to hold the territory, but you also need to be able to feed it exotic tech in order to maximize its use.
Right. So each quadrant, each territory will have one assembler. That one assembler will do something like create one continuum tech per hour, we'll say, if it's being fueled by, if you have the appropriate amount of exotic tech to feed into it. And then, that means for example, one territory, if you own one territory, you can only build 24 continuum tech a day. And if they were 100 exotic per tech, that's going to cost you 2,400 exotic a day to keep
And
that running.
and a transwarp drive might cost something like 360 continuum tech. So you're looking at days worth of from one territory, days worth of production time to build this drive.
Yeah.
The reason being is that by time gating the tier 4 tech, the continuum tech this way, it will not become like exotic tech where at some point it becomes flush and everybody has lots of it, and it's no longer like as sought after. And so tier 4 will always be time gated in that way, and will always have value,
Value.
well into the late game. And then
Yeah.
also it gives a gameplay loop, a replay value to hunting late game ships and acquiring vast amounts of exotic tech because there's
Yeah.
replay value in doing that.
Because currently one of the complaints is that, once I reached the end game and I got like, 100,000 exotic tech in the bank, and I'm like, I already have my fleet of ships and I'm capped out with PCU. So like, what do I do now? Right. Now you have that tech that you amassed, you dump that into you take over territories first off. That's another reason to own territories. The more territories you own, the more tech you can build, continuum tech, that is. You sink your exotic into that, and then you're able to build the end game true end game cool shit that
and
everybody is gonna
and
want.
now defending your territories even have a little bit more weight in the sense that if your alliance owns 3 territories with assemblers and someone takes one of them from you, they've just reduced your tier 4 crafting ability by 1/3.
Yes, which is huge, right? If it takes you, if it was one continuum tech per hour, it's 24 a day. You own 1 territory, which means in say toss, I don't know, 36 continuum tech, or sorry, 360. I don't know, say it's 100 tech, 100 continuum tech to build a stealth heatsink to increase the time that you can stay stealthed, right? That's like 4 days work, right? 4 days of just waiting to get enough to build that. Now, if I had 3, guess what? That's like a day and a bit. So now a day and a bit, and I can build it because I own 3 territories versus I have to wait 3 days or 4 days to actually get what I wanted. So huge difference. And ultimately, you take enemy territories; they now limited to the tech they can build, and then it also opens up other trade loops. So if people want, they can sell their continuum tech for stuff and go that route.
Yeah, so if you were an invader, you have a decision to make because all the territories have a very unique feel now. So the production base gives you production bonuses, but also covers the trade hub. So if I want access to elite phasers, I may want to take the production base in alpha so that I can get access to that trade hub because maybe it's been blockaded up until now. Or I may decide I want to take the mine so that it makes it harder for them to upkeep their territories because they don't have easier access to Latinum or the shipyard to be able to repair my forward fleets because I have a shipyard facility there that I won't have to return home to do so. So there's a lot of different options as far as like a different feel. And part of that is standardizing the territories across the board. Right now, they're kind of a muddled mess, and it's because we didn't design the server around this system. And so the some of them are better than others, and the goal is to have them all be the same, so that when somebody takes a territory from someone, they know exactly the significance of that situation.
Yes. Yeah, so that's the true end game tech is continuum tech. And as the server progresses, more cool specialized Star Trek technologies will be released under the branch of continuum tech. So more reasons to save up, get to end game, mass your continuum tech so that you can get these cool things that you can build that are not available at other tech tier levels. It's like specialized tech. Um, Another thing is there will be some other tiered stuff that are don't cost as much. So if you want, so like say an assembler, right? An assembler is 1 by 2 blocks, right? So basically it's 2 blocks in size. Now, when you add all of the um, modules to an assembler, right? Now it becomes massive. Now you got 2 in the middle, plus you got 2 all the way around. So you're looking at like a 3 by 3 space you're taking up. Is that right? 2, 4, 6. No, 3 by 2 by 2. 3 by 3 by 2. So anyways, it takes up a lot of space, right, for an assembler as an example. So there will be an iteration for people eventually that want to spend. You can build an assembler that is a continuum level assembler. That a continuum level assembler looks different, obviously. It is only 1 by 2. It's 2 blocks in size, but it actually includes all of the elite modules built into it. So I don't have to add modules. I build that one piece, and it is the most power efficient, fastest assembler available, right? Same thing for refineries. Those will be a thing eventually as well. But that being said, like Killing mentioned, don't expect an iteration of every single block into continuum tech. That's not going to be. It's only going to be select things
Yeah,
that are.
you're not going to have continuum gyroscopes. Like it's going to be very specific things that are like, productions and kind of the exception to that. But like other things,
Assemblers and refiners are just the exception. Just
so
because.
you might see, and don't, so this is not confirmed, but so like one of the options we talked about was a nano drill. People had asked for nano drills before. We thought, that's too OP for this server, but maybe not for something that's continuum tech. So if we have mod suggestions that the staff agrees on, that is an agreement that is an OP item, it may come out in a continuum tech form. That's just one example, but the trans warp and stealth are the ones that are actually confirmed that are examples of that.
Yeah. So, all right. So guys, I have to use the bathroom. So let's take a let's say max 10 minutes. Yeah, say 10. 10-minute break. Let's come back. Then I'm going to jump in game and I'm going to show you some cool stuff in game.
Cool.
All right. I'll see you back in 10.
Yeah, so he's gonna be showing off some awesome stuff, new models, and I think some ships and whatnot. Some really cool stuff. We'll be back.
Give it 2 more minutes for people to come back. Then we'll get started. For those that are on, I just started another stream, so you probably have to rejoin the video.
Yeah, I got you pulled up. Hey, did you ever hand out an ETA?
Not yet. I'm
Not
getting
yet.
there.
Getting there. Okay, cool. Well, since I'm presuming it's going to be an announcement, I actually got some shit I got to do, unfortunately. So you folks have a good one. I will check the announcements later.
Easy, man.
All right. Thanks, then. See ya.
Yeah, have a good one.
See ya. All right. Is there any way to see who's watching your stream?
Yeah. Usually, if you hover over the viewers, there's like the little eye icon, and you hover over it. I think it tells you who's watching.
Oh yeah, I think I see it. 29 spectators. Okay. All right, guys. So we're gonna get started. So this is a quick demo. Keep in mind, some of this is still rough and work in progress, but I wanted to show you some cool stuff that's coming out. So first off, a couple trinkets are coming in. So these are new lights that you can put into your bases. They work like this. So this is like a corner in your base, right? And so you want to put a light, you can simply just throw that into the corner and then create an effect kind of like that. So some cool lights. You also have ones that are built in with armor blocks, such as oops, these guys. So you can build it a block, and then it has it kind of built into it for a different kind of look as well. We got some new weapons. Our deflector dish, our disruptor cannon. This disruptor cannon was actually Quarania's, so thank you to him for letting us use it. Saves me some time modeling. So we used his model for the disruptors. We have this guy here. This is our new point defense phaser. So it shoots pulsed phaser shots that can intercept spatial torpedoes. It also shoots biologicals. It also damages light armor. So early game, technically, you know how everyone's like, oh, I can't find magnesium or something like that. Your early game ships can actually use these as weapons because they will do damage to blocks and shields, but very minimally. So end game or mid game, they're not really going to be used for that. But what they are going to be used for is to protect your ship from people shooting, right? So someone jumping out trying to grind through your ship to take stuff, or you could throw these inside your base as defense turrets to shoot people on the inside. So I can show you an example of that. So say I have right. So say this is my ship, and I don't know, this is some corner of the ship. What I could do is throw this. Right? Like that. Now it's on the ceiling. So now if someone enters that room, right, this thing is going to shoot you because you're a biological as a security thing. So it's an interior turret, but it's also on the outside as a turret to help shoot down missiles and people. So multifunction. These are also animated. So if we jump into our thing here, I can close them and they hide. And then I can turn them back on and they pop back out. These are our new phaser cannons. So like Defiant style cannons. And this is the stealth drive. On top of the stealth drive is our heat sinks. Heat sinks extend the duration of which you can stay cloaked. Let's see. We got bioneural gel packs. So these bioneural gel packs are actually the special items you require to build things in the quadrant. So this is the alpha gel pack. The alpha gel pack is used as a component in order for you to build those elite phasers. And then the beta gel pack is for the elite disruptors. Gamma is for the elite deflectors, and delta for the elite phaser cannons. This is a new work in progress block as well. It is used to extend the range of your weapons. So currently weapons have a lock-on range of 5K. Putting this on your grid will extend your lock-on range to 10K. So you can lock on from a further distance before you actually so you can target them. Your shots won't really reach the enemy because it's too far, but you'll be able to lock on in advance. This also can be used with scripts to create some sort of kind of like a radar to scan within 10K around you for any ships, enemy ships. So if you're patrolling an asteroid belt or a planet, you're looking for people or something, you can use, if you have this in addition to the script, you would be able to kind of help you find people in the universe.
Can it be chained together between multiple grids to create like a search grid?
Oh, sorry, Hazrock, you're kind of low. I didn't hear you.
Sorry. Can you chain together? Could you build spy satellites that you just leave about that to create like a grid that could just let you know if anything goes near any of them?
Um, There's not really a notification system built in to let you know if it's triggered something. Also, to have satellites you'd probably have to introduce ray tracing, which is really hard on the server because it has to constantly scan a 10 kilometer radius. So it would do really 20 kilometers all the way around the target, or 10 kilometers all the way around the target, which ends up being from one end to the other end 20 kilometers. So not right now. I am tinkering with some other future ideas. This definitely is just in the thought process, but I am looking at creating some sort of early warning system for raiding, where you can get a notification either in Discord or through another means, um, if you are being attacked. So if the system detects your grid has taken damage from another player, it would send you a notification saying you are being attacked. And then if you're offline, you'd be able to like try to get online and do something about that, or get on Discord, talk to your alliance, and ask for someone to help because you can't get to your ship or your computer or something like that. So that is something that I am looking at putting together, but again, it's just in the thought phase at this time. We then have special items. Remember those trade items I told you about that you can buy and sell? So here's our self-sealing stem bolt. And if you're a Star Trek lore kind of person, that's actually what it looks like. This is a Delta data core. So this is what you buy from the Delta Quadrant. Here's your Klingon blood wine. I'll probably throw a Klingon symbol on it just to make it a little nicer. And then here's your Tetracell white. So if you remember from DS9, that's kind of what they look like. Again, I didn't go super detail into these because these are not technically blocks right now that like you place. These are just items, right? Once they're in your inventory, you very rarely would actually see them floating in the world because they'll probably be picked up by your build and repair or something like that. But if this is of interest to you guys, I'll throw it to you. I can go more into depth making these more detailed models and cleaner. And what we could do is make these into decorative items. So since I already have the model done, I just need to make them look nicer. I can make a self-sealing stem bolt as like a block you toss on a desk or something. The data core is the blood wine, and I can go, make this more detailed, the Tetracell white thing. So they could just be decorative blocks.
I was gonna say you could probably make like a sort of wine rack for like the blood wine as like a decorative block.
Yeah, I could do that too. Once we get this release out and get through the initial, live woes, I'm going to be cycling back to one to our Patreons, which as part of your Patreon perks as captain and admiral, you get access to special decorative blocks that don't exist right now. So it's always been my intent to make some stuff for them. I haven't had a chance because there's always something new that has to be fixed or redone. So I'm really hoping that once this launch happens, I can go back and start taking care of them some more by building some cool stuff. This is our new assembler, programmable matter assembler. So it's only 2 blocks long. It has the power efficiency, speed efficiency, etc. of full elite, as well as being elite itself. So it's all in a small kind of package. That yeah, just one of the things. So this assembler would be kind of located actually on one of all of the territories. It'll be a special version of this. It'll look very similar or the same, but this will have a blueprint recipe available in that one assembler or one type of assembler that will be able to build continuum tech. The other models that the players can use in their bases and stuff, that one will not build continuum tech. That is just a super powered assembler. Now continuum tech, what does it look like? It looks like this. So the component, when you drop it in space, looks like this. And again, if this is something of interest, I could probably throw this into a regular block so that people can use it for display purposes or something. So what do they look like? Let's check it out. So number one, here we go. And if I cloak, there you go. Oh, my lights are on, but I'll turn those off. So basically you become fully invisible. The only thing that makes you visible is lights, or not lights, thrusters, or your lights on your suit, like I'm using right now. And you can uncloak. And let me show you something else really quick. So if I gotta wait for the timer to go again.
So the way the cloaking works is default cloaking is 30 seconds, I believe, on the stealth drive, and it's 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So you have for however long you're able to cloak, that's how long you stay decloaked. And that is the same when you start adding heat modules. So yeah, the heat sinks. So the heat sinks will add to your cloaking timer, and for every second that the heat sinks add, or every minute that they add, whatever, it's the same. It gets added to your downtime. So if you can cloak for 15 minutes, when you come out of cloak, you'll be on downtime for 15 minutes.
Yep. So let's cloak again. So I'm cloaked again. Now watch. When I get out of the cockpit, you're like, oh no, I decloaked. No, you didn't. If I go to third person view, you're invisible still. So you can actually keep cloaked and jump out of your cockpit and run around your ship, and you will remain cloaked until which you go back in and uncloak. So really cool. So weapons.
It also cloaks everything inside. So you notice the items that are floating were cloaked. So if you have like, let's say you have a carrier with a small grid docked inside of it, that would be cloaked. If you, it's anything within the range of the stealth drive.
Yeah.
Why 30 seconds though? That seems kind of short.
30 seconds is a feeler. It's 30 seconds is actually you can do a lot in 30 seconds. Let me give you an example. If you're going through a wormhole, right, to another quadrant, and as soon as you zone in, you're like, shit, there's people there gonna attack me, right? They're camping the gate. Throw your cloak on. You're invisible. They can't target you. Turn on your warp drive. Get the hell out of there. You're safe. You can do all that in 30 seconds. Now, the longer term one is for like longer missions. Like if I want to go into the quadrant now, stay cloaked for while I, say I'm scouring the belt, right? I could stay cloaked while I scour the belt, decloak when I find the guy I want. All of a sudden, he just pops in front of me, and then you attack, just like in Star Trek.
Or if you notice somebody that's hunting in the belt while you're in your miner, you could cloak back out of your hole that you're in with the asteroid and warp away.
Yeah,
Another
it
use
could be defensive use as well, right?
running blockades. So let's say Alpha has decided to lock down their trade hub, but you're trying to turn in your it wouldn't be stimbles, it would be blood wine. Let's say you're trying to turn in your blood wine at the Alpha trade hub. You could cloak to get past their blockade, and then you're in the safe zone, and then you could wait out your cloak timer inside the safe zone. So there's a lot of different ways you could use a 30-second cloak.
Yeah.
But for like doing things like stealth initiate on a siege, that you would need the extended timer on, or if you wanted to, let's say you were trying to camp stealth, so you had two ships. This is just a one use case that I thought of. Let's say your cloak time is like 5 to 10 minutes, and you have your one person that's at the trade hub waiting for people in stealth, and then you have your buddy outside of range waiting to take your place when your cloak runs out. So you have two ships with equal cloaking. You could warp out when your cloak's about to come out, and then they could go in, and you could trade off. That way, you always have somebody sitting there cloaked. So there's some different things you could do with short timers. It just depends on like how many heat sinks you want to put on your, get on your ship.
Yeah. Also, when you decloak, the heat sinks top grid you. So when you decloak, you then become visible for X amount of. It's like a turning on a beacon, basically,
Yeah,
for X amount period of time.
it's a forced range based on your cloak. Uh, I believe it's based on your cloak timer. So the longer you can cloak, the larger heat signature you like. The more heat sinks you have, the larger heat signature you might have. So when you decloak off of like a default 30 seconds, the range may not be more than weapons range. But if you decloak with like 10 heat sinks, it may be well past weapon range.
Yeah. So again, multiple strategies, different ways to do it. Plan accordingly, figure out what works best. Just a new element of how to play the game.
And also having a shorter timer may be to your advantage, because if you have a 15-minute cloak, that means that when you decloak, you can't cloak again for another 15 minutes, because it's the same time on is and off, and you might not want to use it that way on that particular class of ship. You may want to have access to it sooner, so you'd want a shorter timer. It just depends on how you want to use it.
Also, when you cloak, where's my ship?
Section 31. So good at stealth, they can't find their own ships.
There you go.
Does the cloak work with connected ships?
Yes. Everything cloaked in and around the grid. Even if you, I think, put a landing gear on something, it would cloak as well. So that being said, right, here's a ship. I'm cloaking the ship. My cloaked ship, I still see these little things out there, the lights from the thrusters. So the thruster lights do not cloak. The only way to get rid of those is actually to use that recolorable thruster mod that's will be in the server, and basically you turn your thruster plumes to be black or nothing, and then you'll be invisible completely.
Yeah, you could disable them.
Yeah.
For while you're cloaked.
Also, there is a lag time when you come out of cloak, just like Star Trek. So when you decloak your ship, then your shields do not instantly go up. There is a delay between decloaking and your shields going up. So if you're like gonna surprise somebody and you just decloak right in their face, for the first whatever amount of seconds, you actually have no shields because they're down. Then you can be hit and attacked with no shields. Then your shields will pop back on, right? So just like Star Trek, you can't instantly go cloak to shield, shield to cloak, like that fast. There's a lag.
And while you're cloaked, your shields are down. So if you were to use a fixed weapon, or force fire of a weapon and manually aim at a cloaked ship, you would in fact shoot through it without shielding. So if somebody tried to use like a cloaked ship to initiate a siege, right? They would see the channeling between the siege block and the territory, and they would be able to use fixed weaponry to start shooting that ship.
Yes. So also, if you are cloaked and you shoot your guns while you're cloaked, you will decloak automatically. So shooting while cloaked pulls you out of cloak.
Also, if you're taking continuous fire and you try to cloak while taking damage, there's a threshold that you can. If you're taking phaser fire, for example, because it's continuous stream, and you try to cloak while being phasered, it will not work. It'll pull you out of cloak.
Yeah. You need a little gap in time to cloak and just vanish.
If you can escape targeting range,
Yeah.
then you can cloak and get away. Or if you can cloak before they lock weapons onto you. So like, let's say you're in the belt and you're on a miner with a stealth drive, and all you need is that 30 seconds. You don't need the continuum heat sinks, but you need to, let's say they can't target you because they're on the opposite side of the asteroid and they're working their way around to the hole that you dug in. If you cloak, now you have the opportunity to not be locked onto and fired upon, and that gives you an opportunity to escape, and you really only need 30 seconds to escape.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at the weapons. All right. So we got inactive. So our phaser cannons, I threw some on the front of my ship here. So that's them. The phaser cannons shoot. They can overheat, so you can't just like hammer down all the time on them. You want to do shots in like bursts. They also take a little bit of time to reload. Where these are good is because they're burst damage. They don't do a ton of shots, but the shots they do, if they connect, they do high damage. So it's bursty damage. The point defense look like that. They're kind of exploding right now because they're hitting my own ship because I'm just forcing them to turn on. But if you look at them, oops. That's what they look like, and they actually spin. So they spin in circles as they fire, and then they shoot their little blue things out. So they look pretty cool like that. And they can be tucked away.
And that explosive animation, I think, is going to get removed too. It's because it's spammy, but yeah, work in progress.
Yeah. And then this guy. This one's pretty cool. This is the deflector beam. So if you look down here, I got my trusty deflector installed. And then it has a power-up animation and a long beam. As you can see, it shoots super far. It goes like 5 kilometers or something. Or no, it goes
kind of
6
like the
kilometers.
tachyon beams in Star Trek Online.
Yes. There's always a deflector, some sort of beam they put out of their hull.
So this weapon, its niche is the bunker buster. So one of the things that I asked Sorg for is the station shields are extremely strong, and because we don't have the ability to config Darkstar's shield mod, station shields can get to the point where they're overpowered. For example, a station that has 5 rare tech reactors can have like 450 million shields, and you can have 30 elite phasers hitting that shield for 45 minutes and not touch it past 98%. So that is a problem being addressed with this weapon. This is a specifically made to fight shields. As a matter of fact, it doesn't do hull damage at all.
Well, it does, but extremely minimal.
It's a very, very low amount of hull damage. Yeah, like it's not gonna pierce multiple layers of armor easily.
Yeah, even that whole beam on one block is not even going. It'll deform it a little bit. It won't go through it.
It won't break it.
Yeah, there's like next to no damage.
But it does significant shield damage.
Right. So like right now with current balancing, again, still work in progress. A direct full hit on a Borg cube did like 25% damage
Ooh.
To its shields. So
to
it's a
to its
significant
shields.
amount, which
Yeah,
means that if you had four ships with, that's the elite, right? So if you had
that's the elite. Yeah.
four ships with the elite disruptors, you could take down a Borg shield instantly.
Yeah. But
So they
again,
are
that's
very powerful.
the masses, right? You multiplayer gameplay, you work with as a team, it's always easier as a team. It's still possible solo, but easier obviously with a team.
And this beam is going to have a long cooldown period. Right now, it's not adjusted
Yes.
that way for testing, so that you guys can see and and it can be demoed. And as we test damage ratios and things like that, we need the cooldown to be less so that we can actually use it more frequently. But in game, it will have it'll be very strong, but will also come with a long cooldown. So if you miss your first shot, there is a good chance that you're not going to get another one for a while.
Yeah, it's gonna have a very long cooldown, probably like 30 minutes.
Like
something like that, 30 minutes. But and it also uses a significant amount of power to recharge. So if you throw this on your ship and you shoot and you miss and you're like, oh, I gotta do another shot, and you're in the middle of combat, it's going to be taking a chunk of your power that you would normally divert to phasers to shoot stuff, right? Now you're diverting it.
Probably going to want to toggle it off in a fight, especially against players. Or
Yeah.
actually, I guess NPCs, players, whatever. If you miss or you miss or hit, you're going to want to toggle it off after you use.
Yeah.
But it'll help. So if you have a fleet of ships, then they all have a disruptor beam. It'll help with things like unmanned grids. Unmanned grids are pretty ridiculous, and there are some scenarios where it's okay. So for example, if a station gets filled in by voxel reset on a planet, and the shield emitter is too far from the ground for the torpedoes to hit the ground and splash through, since the torpedoes will not dig through voxel, there is absolutely no way to take down that station shield now, because the station shield is so strong that elite phasers won't cut it unless you use like 100 of them. So this is a way for us to combat the fact that stations have OP shields, and the unmanned grids can get a little out of hand if you build them full elite.
Yeah, full energy protection, station shield, full reactors is like
almost
200 million shields that recharge incredibly fast. Right? So this is a thing where like, hey, if number one, if you're taking down a quote unquote space station, you're not really gonna, it's not really a solo job. Right? You'd go in with a few ships. So now you roll in with 4 ships. Each ship has maximum 1 deflector array. You all beam at the same time, a stationary target, hard to miss, right? You knock out their shields, or not knock them out, but you take a significant portion of their shields out. You let your phasers do the rest of the work. And then maybe once that shield is completely down, then you call in the reserves, or you switch out your weapons for disruptors, and you do massive hull damage, because disruptors do more hull damage than they do shield damage, right? So different strategies. I don't think I mentioned that actually earlier. Disruptors do more
you haven't
hull.
showed off the disruptors yet, so that's a good segue into them.
Yeah. So that's that. So let's go back to our disruptors.
I've been wondering about that in my own world. What's this combat phase?
That's a modular encounter system. It's how it determines when hostile grids are going to spawn.
Yeah, so it's a new system with MES, modular encounter spawner. There you can push. You can actually have 2 phases of enemies. So basically, you could say for every 15 minutes, like every 15 minutes on the hour, right? You have a combat phase. That combat phase means a different subset of NPCs spawn. So think of it as, say there was a special event we had where, I don't know, a super boss spawns, right? Potentially anywhere. That we could say that the window in which it spawns is 5 minutes per hour. So only in 5 minutes within each hour at a random time, it would be able to spawn. It would spawn, and then you can have a chance to attack it, and then that window would close, and then you can't attack it anymore. Like, not attack it, but it won't spawn for the
It
next
means that like
55 minutes.
a large hunting party wouldn't be able to do back-to-back vengeances or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically, long story short, it's a spawning window of opportunity that certain spawns can spawn. And then when it's out of combat phase, it's just like all the regular stuff spawns. That's the concept of it. We haven't really integrated that use in our setup yet. All right, so disruptors, these are still, there's currently a bug with them, so hopefully it doesn't crash my server or my game. But let's see. Here they are. So when you fire your disruptor, oh, I got the cannons on still. So they got a cool new sound. These guys do damage to more hull damage than shield damage. I think it's like currently 35% more hull damage than the phasers do. So they don't do as much damage to shields, but once those shields go down, and you're trying to, so basically it's a different way of playing the game, and it balances out. The enemy will be shielded longer while you attack it. Say you had a ship decked out in just disruptors. The enemy shield will take longer to get down. So you're fighting this shielded object longer. But once that shield drops, you're slicing through it 35% faster, which means you're taking out their weapons faster, you're taking out their engines faster, like you're disabling the ship faster. It just takes longer to get the shield down initially. So there's just, again, different way to play the game. You can have multiple ships. So you could say, hey, you and a buddy go out, one guy decked out in phasers, another guy decked out in disruptor cannons, and basically you get the best of both worlds, right? Or maybe on your ship you do 50-50. That's kind of up to you. So those are options, and that is what the guy looks like here.
Yeah, maybe you reserve your power on the disruptors and don't turn them on until the shields drop on a ship. There's a lot of different ways you can mix these new weapons together, but
and we won't fully know until really people start doing it in game, right? That's when people find out, cook up new ideas and things and how to best use them. The community will always be resourceful like that. All right. Not that this is coming out, so don't get your hopes up too much, but this is the rough version of the setup for the what's it called? Impulse. I might as well just show you a quick thing. I would still working on it. I honestly haven't looked back at it. I just actually installed the mod a little while ago. But Impulse engines, you got two versions. So you got these guys here, these are modular. So you stack them up and you build them like that. This is the rear section that propels you forward. There's also these little individual ones. So these are for like smaller ships, a different kind of design as well. They are powered by plasma. Plasma is a new energy source. So the way you build plasma in Star Trek lore is pretty much your warp drive creates warp plasma. It also creates plasma. That plasma, I think it's superheated and becomes electroplasma. So basically this device, so you'll have a unit that basically will make you plasma over time. It makes it because you have warp reactors online and powering your grid, it will then trickle in warp plasma over time, or sorry, fusion plasma over time. Fusion plasma goes into the fusion reactor here. The fusion reactor will create electroplasma, The electroplasma is actually what the energy is in your starships. Electroplasma goes into EPS conduits. EPS conduits are like these guys.
Do they
So
have
there's
sufficient exploding in them?
what's that?
The the plasma conduits, do they explode at the drop of a hat?
That's a good question. I haven't looked at that yet. I believe they do explode. I will try to make them not explode.
They've got to explode when you breathe on them.
Oh yes, for Star Trek, yes. It's always the EPS conduit that blows first thing.
And it's always the starboard ones.
Yeah. So it's colors. So yeah, there's small EPS conduits, and then there's going to be larger ones as well that store a different amount, right? Larger conduit stores more or less more shields. Oops.
More
So
plasma.
these are still, again, work in progress, guys. I'm still working on detailing some of these little bug side things, and ultimately the function of getting them to work properly. But that's what they look like. I had some screenshots I showed earlier on about, like, in some other demo about what they look like on an actual ship. They look really, really nice on a ship, like installed properly.
Did you talk about the warp drives for small grid?
No,
Because I know
those
you
are
had a plan on that, or
yes, definitely. I fully admit, I've completely neglected small grid. It is a lot of work to build just large grids. Now, to make a small grid version is also a lot more work. So, don't expect small grid versions like right away. There will be small grid versions. They're just not available in the initial releases of things. So warp drive is the first on my list for small grid stuff. That and making small versions of these guys, because they'll be useful for that.
Small grid reactors, because right now it's hard to put. You have small grid phasers, but it's almost impossible to power them, I believe. But I mean,
Yes.
small grids are in this server. This might not be a popular opinion, but I don't think small grids really have much of a place currently, and I don't know that they ever will.
Currently, yeah, they're small grids. Well, even in Star Trek, a shuttle pod is a small grid. A shuttle pod is not really going to do much against a starship, right? Uh, I will build them. They're not top priority because main stuff is going to happen with large grids. But eventually, when we do have a proper set of small grid things, we can hold little server events, small grid only, that kind of stuff. Because I know there's a huge crowd that loves small grid stuff. So, I'm not saying I'm not doing it. I'm just saying that it's not on the highest of priorities right now. It's the large grid stuff because that's what majority of people need to progress. The other stuff's like nice to have. That is that. What else did I want to go through?
Have
Just a
you
quick
decided how
question.
powerful the
Phasers
impulse
are
thrusters are going to be compared to the vanilla stuff or the tiered stuff?
Yeah, the thrusters are a completely new way to fly. They are nothing like you experienced in
So
Space Engineers.
it's more than just power. They're also going to be because it's a gas type. It's a new gas type. They're gonna be more efficient than hydrogen, right? But they're a hybrid, so they take energy and power. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarg. I might be speaking
Yeah.
out of my ass
So
here. But
the impulse engines, the impulse thruster, like this thing, the impulse, these take plasma to power. That's main propulsion, right? You see these at the back of starships. They propel you forward. Then around your ship, you're going to have RCS thrusters, something that look like these guys. The RCS thrusters are going to be all the way around your ship, top, up, down, bottom, or up, down, left, right, and forward and backwards. And what they do is they create extreme dampening. All right. They produce little thrust to maneuver a little bit, but mainly they have crazy dampening, which means that, you know, when you watch Star Trek and they stop impulse, right? They stop. They don't if they're at full impulse and they come to a stop, they're not traveling for 15 minutes still trying to have reverse thruster to stop that mass. They just stop.
They just stop.
So that's the concept of this. So
The
when you
feel. I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
so the yeah, the feel of this new thruster system is that the reverse, this here, your main impulse thruster propels you in one direction. Okay. Forward, wherever forward is at that time. So I can go from 0 to 100 real quick. And when I want to then turn left, I'm not going to I'm not going to use like the A button to like thrust left. I'm not going to strafe. I'm going to turn the ship, right? 90 degrees. And then I'm going to thrust forward 90 degrees. And then what's going to happen is because I have super dampening, I'm virtually going to it's going to really quickly come to a stop in that one motion, that one forward, the old forward motion I was going in. And it's then going to make me go in the next forward motion, right? So it's all driven from the rear propulsion. Another really cool thing about this is planetary landing. Like with this system, you can take like a Galaxy class massive ship and you could land that no problem on a planet because
And
your dampening is so high.
And the awesome part about it is it's themed for the server is that you're not doing that with a bunch of hydras facing down on the ship. It will look like, you know, what you would expect. Matter of fact, we originally tested this with an enterprise. So
Yeah.
when you come into gravity, you fly in and you have this great ability to hold your position, right? But when you leave, instead of like just pressing spacebar and going straight up like you do with a space engineer ship, you would instead nose up and fly out because you have this in immense dampening power, but the RCS thrusters don't provide that much thrust. They just allow you to feel sticky in space and atmo.
Yeah.
It's sticky is the word for it
So
because that's how it feels to me. But like, yeah.
so like if you ever watched Star Trek Voyager, you know, they landed on a planet quite a bit with that ship. You know, if you ever watched a starship take off from a planet, what happens? They have landing gear, they retract the landing gear, they like they go up a bit, retract the landing gear. Now they're hovering above the ground ever so slightly, right? Then what do? Then they angle their starship on like a 35-degree angle, kind of facing up or whatever, right? Then they move forward. And that's the exact same concept of how this works. When you land on that planet and then you take off, you are then lifting off a little bit. You are then angling up, and then you're moving like kind of like a plane. Think of an airplane taking off. It's that concept. You don't just thrust up and just go up with spacebar. You actually like swoop.
Fly. Yeah, and
Yeah, fly.
it feels great both in the
It
descent
does.
into atmosphere and the exit. It feels very Star Trek, and you'll be able to carry large payloads into. So a problem that maybe some players have experienced is because we have such a large speed cap. Sometimes when you're breaking into atmosphere, you have a lot of speed to slough off, and that is something that's going to be mitigated by RCSs, where you'll be able to make controlled landings, but you'll fly into a landing rather than just going straight down.
Yep. And
So,
when these
so
are
we'll be able to like swoop like you see the
Exactly.
the subtles do and whatnot.
oh yeah, all about the swooping.
It feels great. There's just there's a
It
scripting
is.
issue with the RCS that we're working on, and then there's some things to polish on the as far as like the balance of the mod. But
Yeah,
You guys have done some awesome stuff. Do you have all this documented other than the video you're taking right now?
Well, I'm actually not taking video. It's just recording voice. There will be some documentation that is going to be built with this.
I'm sure a lot of it's going to end up in Hype Train channel too, just so that people that didn't get the visuals will get to see some of the new stuff coming out.
Definitely a lot of hype train images I hope to be releasing as things get finalized, and then people have something to look forward to. That being said, I don't know, I didn't say it directly, but as you can see with all these changes, there's definitely going to be a wipe. Everyone is going to be at ground zero again. However, remember, for the first 2 weeks, you do get a special starter ship for the first 2 weeks that you will start in if you want to use it. You don't have to. You can start the old school way if you want to. But you'll get that for the first 2 weeks. And yeah, it comes with a Warp 1 drive and a little bit of uranium in it. And, it looks cooler and it's bigger and whatnot. It helped fast track you into the new server for the first 2 weeks. There will be a cap on those though, for example. So like I think I'm gonna limit it to maybe 2 per person per lifetime. So that
it's not farmable.
Yeah, like right now people like they spawn 40 starter ships and they just farm the parts and grind them down and start off that way. That's not the intent for this, right? So there's little to no threat in those PvE areas, except little drones, which should be no match for you. So there's really no reason that you're gonna wipe other than you colliding into an asteroid or something, right? So just be careful.
Never done that.
No, never.
So when is
never
this
done
supposed to
that either.
happen?
Well, that leads me to second last topic. So if we go back to let me see if I can switch my screen without it breaking.
One of there's a few reasons for the wipe, but one of the main reasons is the world building for Nexus. We can't set up this map without doing a wipe because Nexus doesn't really appreciate changes to existing sectors when it comes to planet order and stuff like that. As you guys may have seen from the new planets that got added, they're kind of buggy. That's because of that. And another thing that was part of like the quadrant warfare and going down to 4 alliances is that the sectors weren't planned out for that, right? And one of the big tells of that is the distances on alpha and beta quadrant compared to gamma and delta. If you've been through gamma and delta, the travel times at most from one point of interest to another is about 12K. That's at the very most. Where in alpha quadrant and beta quadrant from the starters clusters, you could be flying like 33,000 kilometers to a POI. And that is a very long distance for players at a low tech tier. Even at exotic tech warping, that's still a long distance. So because of that, the gamma and delta would have a significant advantage over the alpha and beta quadrants. And that the goal is to make the quadrants self-sufficient so that you can focus on the sovereignty of your home quadrant.
All right, so can you guys see the screen? It's the map again.
Yep.
All right, so what are the current possible delays in launch? One is, if you noticed, we currently have 13 servers. 12 servers. Hold on. How many servers do we have? 13. We have 13 servers currently, right? The physical machines we run these on are pretty utilized, we'll say, right? They have 2 physical server boxes that are running 1.7 servers, 1.6 servers. Now, this new setup to work ideally performance-wise, we need 16 servers because each quadrant has 3 sectors. Each sector is a server. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's 14 servers that are just sectors. Then you have a lobby server, so that's 15. And then you have deep space, which is its own server, which is 16. That very much stresses out the capabilities of the resources we have available to us. Now, initially, should we be able to run it on launch? Probably. As I imagine this is going to pick up, especially with all the new ways to play this server and how we have this end game loop of content. I imagine this is going to be very popular. At least I'm hoping. And we're going to run out of we're not a system. We're not going to be able to handle it long term. So I tried to reorganize all the sectors to drop them down. So I only did 2 sectors per quadrant. But the issue with that is, have you guys, you know how on servers, especially ours, we're just like, guys, don't cluster, don't put all your grids near each other. You know, it's hurting sim speed, it's affecting everyone else's gameplay, right? You've probably heard that like 100,000 times. The way to mitigate that is, number one, each quadrant, right, has that home safe zone. The home safe zone is in one area. Everybody is going to be building into that safe zone, which naturally clusters, right?
And,
They
and
pop
we're
right
still going to
beside
be
each other.
asking people to, put the grids that you're not using away, but it is going to be a clustered area that just will.
Right. We're still going to highly recommend, if you're not using your grids, don't leave 300,000 PCU just dangling there because you're in a safe zone. You would want to hanger your grid still. But stations and stuff like that are not going to be hangered, obviously. Anyways, a lot of grids in one sector obviously is stress, right? If I don't give that sector its own server, that means that the stress that people are feeling here, like all the grids that are jumbled here, if I mix this with this sector 4, which has shipyard and the mining planet, the territories, that means that, hey, if there's a big war here in the shipyard and sim speed is dropping because of that war, because we all know massive battles does hurt sim, right? That means that everyone on the mining planet is going to feel it. Everybody who has a base in the safe zone is going to feel it. Everybody on Earth is going to feel it. Everyone's going to feel it, right? And the same thing, if I merge this with Sector 5, that means everybody coming in from a wormhole who's trading is going to feel it. Everyone who's on Bajor or mining is going to feel it. Everyone's going to feel it. So really, the best way to do this layout is to actually the optimal way is 3 separate sectors. This way, all the new people coming in go to their sector, they come here, no lag. They just have, the only thing that's in here is literally one planet that may or may not be populated depending on people's gameplay style. They may choose just to stay in the safe zone because technically there's no safe zone on Earth. It's in orbit. So it's a lot less strain. And if, say, a bunch of people forget to hanger their grids and sim drops to 0.8 and everyone's like, what's going on?
Sorry, you cut out. We can't hear you now.
Look the way they look.
Yeah, the servers had an internet issue. 1 sec.
Gotta plug in that headset.
Don't hear shit, sir.
You don't hear me?
There you go.
Wait, you cut off for a
Last
second.
thing you said was unanchored their grid, and people going, "What the hell's going on?" And that was it.
Oh crap. All right. So long story short, 3 separate sectors are done on purpose so that we can alleviate the stress and the sim speed loss for everyone's gameplay. So because a super high traffic area is going to be number 1, sector 5, I'm using alpha as an example. The same falls for all the quadrants, right? So whatever sector 5 is, so sector 7 and beta would be the equivalent. So sector 5 is going to be high traffic. Why? Trade hub is there. We have production facility miners. There's going to be stuff happening, right? It's two wormholes, so it's high traffic area. Another high traffic area is going to be sector 3, your home sector. Why? Because you have your safe zone here. It's a massive safe zone that protects everybody in the alliance. High traffic. A lot of people will be online in sector 3 and in the related other sectors in those quadrants. So we have to keep these separate in order to keep the gameplay in a position where everyone is going to be enjoying nice sim speeds over prolonged periods. And also, we don't want it to affect other people's sieges, right? So if say people in the Alpha Alliance safe zone, they just clustered the crap out of it and sim tanks to 0.5, right? Then if we merged sector 3 and 4 together, that means that anybody who's trying to do a siege for the mining planet or the shipyard, they're going to be sieging at 0.5. Guess what happens when they start firing photons? Sim drops to 0.2. And then it's just everything just falls apart, right? So it's diminishing returns, right? It's a domino effect that we don't want. So that's why we have these 3 sector layouts. That whole long-winded thing is me saying that technically we want another server. We need another physical machine to make sure that 1, everything runs smoothly at launch, and 2, that we can expand, right? This is just the beginning. We have tons of other plans and stuff scoped out for other content. This is just the start. One of the things is we're going to add additional servers for, like, have you ever watched Star Trek Voyager? The very first episode, the Badlands. You know how it's like chaotic
Yes.
space? There's like plasma exploding everywhere and it's highly volatile. Can't warp inside there, right? It's that whole thing. Like we're trying to recreate that Badlands on a server and to give a whole kind of cool, thing around that. And we can do that if we have the additional server space, because we can put together additional servers that can add on to this world as separate servers. So you take a special, say, gate or wormhole or something, you go to a specified location, it takes you to this special Badlands server. Then from the Badlands server, you can go back to the galaxy. And this way we can expand without having to wipe all the time, right? We can make these expansions, which definitely works.
They would be isolated areas though, so like you wouldn't be able to sublight to them. They would be gate only access, right?
Yes, you would take a gate of some sort to these special areas. But we can even do further expansions. Like if this runs incredibly stable and we don't need to wipe, we're not going to wipe, right? If we don't have to. And what we can even do is we can actually set up two clusters of Nexus. So we can actually have this whole galaxy as one, and then we could do something like, hey, let's do a whole new theme called, the mirror universe. And the mirror universe will be connected to this universe. So it's another 13 servers large, and we connect the 2 universes together through some transporter accident or something, right? Like we can do that.
Ion Storm.
Or Ion Storm, yes, that too. So we can actually do that, and if we have that, hardware. So, what I'm hoping to do with you guys on the call, and not just you, but the whole community, I'm going to put it out there as a kind of a funding event. Currently, right now, well, all the initial investment of all the servers came directly from myself, right? I paid for everything. As we've gotten Patreons, that has helped me recuperate those costs. We actually just had somebody not long ago give me or give us a sizable donation, which actually cut us now to in the green. So now I'm no longer out of pocket, which is great. So the server is actually able to spend money to hire people, which we have been for like programmers and mod content creators and stuff like that to give you guys more and more cool shit. But that being said, now we're on the verge of needing an additional server to accommodate this new setup. So I'm going to be reaching out to see if the community, there's no mandatory, you don't have to do this, but I also want to mention it because servers are expensive. This next one we're getting, I want to get a proper, like a top of line Intel 13th gen setup, which is going to probably run around $2,500 to $2,700 Canadian. So American, that's like 2,400. The I personally financially don't have $2,400 to front. However, I want to do this right. I don't want to have to do it after the fact, which we then potentially run into issues or something breaks. I want to do it once, do it right. So my goal is to get something up and running so that I can completely do this setup right the first time and not run into these issues where we're backtracking and changing Nexus planets and all that kind of stuff or moving sectors around. So if anyone is interested in helping, I know a lot of you are Patreons already. Thank you so much. That does help. That monthly amount is going to go directly to the fund of the it currently goes to all the stuff that we normally do. Like, it takes power even to run these things, these servers 24 hours a day and everything, plus mods and programmers and developers we've hired and stuff like that. But the difference is going to be going to the new server setup. But to get us live with the new setup in a reasonable amount of time, I personally think from a workload perspective, I can recreate this universe and have everything done with the NPCs and the mods and tweaked and balanced, at least preliminarily. Potentially, I could have this done for, we'll say, third week of November. So that is, say, about a month for now, 4 to 5 weeks from now, tentatively. Okay. I'm also going on vacation for a week, so I definitely don't want to do it before I go on vacation because I wouldn't want to leave the servers alone without me attending them. But I would say I want to have this up and running latest by November. What was my plan? Let me get you a date. November 19th was a Saturday. I think it was November 19th was the day I wanted to have this live. So it's 4 weeks and 4 days from now. A lot of work to do in that time. But that is the day I want to go live, which means that I also have to try to crowdfund something from the community to get a server created so that we can build this on that server and move forward that way. So like I said, if anybody feel you don't have to, I don't want to pressure you, but again, this is going to go directly to that. For anybody worried about funds, I'm more than happy to show receipts and send them across if you want to see where the dollars are going. But like I said, this server is a pet project of mine. I don't make any money on this, guys. If anything, I'm hurting my relationship with my fiance on a daily basis by spending so much time doing this stuff. And I'm just doing it because I'm a fan of Star Trek. I'm a fan of space engineers.
You just got to get her a big ring. That's all.
Oh, I tried that. It worked for about 3-4 months, and then it loses its luster. Maybe it needs an upgrade. But yeah, so if anything you guys can do, like, even if you're like, here's $5, like, if you want to just help, that's appreciated. You can either sign up for a Patreon, and you can become a member that way. You could just do a PayPal and send whatever dollar amount you feel comfortable with. If you want to do a large amount as a one-time thing, then what I can do is I can divide that out into Patreon. So like, I don't know, say you like, here's $200, and then I can say, okay, well, $200 will get you exit. I'll put you on Patreon for, per Patreon perk access for whatever that is, 200 divided by 15 a month, right? So I could do like that kind of thing if you want to work, or if you just are generous and just want to help donate, then that's cool too. If we get close, obviously, like I don't, I would love for it to be fully funded by the community, but obviously, if we get close enough to that goal, I'll front the cash myself, and just go into a negative like I did before, and then eventually the Patreon will take me out of the negative. It's just, the whole 2,700 Canadian, I can't front that within the next 34 days and have everything ready and all that kind of stuff. Not if I want to keep the fiance. But yeah, so just let me know if you have any more questions regarding that. I did look into some sort of like GoFundMe page and doing it that way, but to be honest, they all take a cut, even Patreon. Patreon gouges you for using their services. But so does GoFundMe and stuff like that. They do take a percentage for their quote unquote fees. So, if you guys know of another place we could use so that, a website we could show globally on Discord, like, hey, this is the goal, this is the number, this is where we're at, and that, they don't have crazy fees associated to it, like Patreon's like 10%. Then 10% of $2,700 is $270 that we just lost in fees for no reason. So if you know of some kind of cool cheap service that we could use, let me know. If not, then we'll just manually do it on PayPal because there's no fees really associated with that. So it works out kind of better. But
Okay.
speechless, fantastic. Take that as a good thing.
There's a lot of stuff. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we went over? Anything that needs to be cleared up?
Well, I don't know if this was won over earlier because I came in like 5-10 minutes late. Was there any discussion on
They
the
can build
torpedo?
all kinds of cool stuff.
Hello?
Yeah,
Oh,
we can hear you.
Sarg is cutting in and out.
Am I cutting in and out?
No,
Sarg
we,
is.
we can hear you.
Yeah, servers are having problems too.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what was it about the torpedoes going through shields and stuff? Was that ever
Is your
talked about?
is your concern that torpedoes bleed through shields?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll speak on this because I'm a big proponent for torpedo bleed, but that's never going to change. I'll let you know that now. The torpedoes are in a pretty good position and they're not going to change. And here's why. So we have a theme server, right? And because torpedoes bleed, that puts us in an armor meta. And shield meta, I've seen in many other places, and it devolves very quickly into brick building. So when the shields are an end all be all defense, then it's just a matter of math. I have to have stronger shields and better DPS than you, and as long as I do that, I will beat you every single time and never have to return home for repairs. And so I can continuously kill ship after ship after ship after ship with never having any deterioration of my grid. And the problem with that is that promotes people to build shield meta ships, which to beat the shield algorithm, you want to build small and compact. And so instead of having multiple layers of armor and having well thought out interiors where you're actually armoring critical areas of your ship, such as like, your shield controllers and things like that, you instead have just like a box and it's a meta shield box, and it's meant to be small and one layer of armor. And as long as I can out DPS you and outlast you in shields, I'll never have to, whoever has the strongest ship on server will just run through people constantly. And we've seen it time and time again on shield meta servers. The torpedo bleed allows for, on the PvP side of things, that there's always risk in every, and it actually includes NPC as well. There's always risk in every single fight. You're going to have to repair, and so that creates a sink on materials. So that there's a reason to get basic materials like iron and nickel and silicon. You eventually end up with millions of it, and if there is no repair cost associated with it, or duranium, titanium, there's no repair cost associated with fighting, then you will have no need for it late game. So there's always going to be a demand created for that because of repair costs. But also, no matter how strong my ship is, if I build a ship that outperforms everyone else's ship on server, you can still beat me because you can gang up on me. I will have to return home at some point. I'm going to take damage even if I beat you. So that's important, especially for battles of attrition and sieges and things like
It's
that.
also very Star Trek.
And yeah, I mean, torpedoes are very deadly in Star Trek. One thing that we did not talk about is torpedo limits, though, and I think that that's going to be changed on launch.
Yes, torpedoes are going to be further reduced to, I think, 10 at this point. 10 launchers per grid maximum, just
20,
because
20 quantums are OP. You can drill
yeah.
through a lot of layers of armor, and even if you well armor your ship, 20 quantums will tear through most grids.
I missed a good portion of it. What was the thrusters? Not before the impulse, but before that. It looked like there was thrusters right before you were showing the cloaking on that little platform. I can't tell. Couldn't tell exactly what it was. It was a big box looking thing with a hole in the front.
I think he's talking about the deflector dish. Maybe when you fired the deflector dish,
Oh.
you weren't showing the face of it. So
Oh yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, because it was on the
No,
other
no, it
ship.
wasn't the dish. It was behind the dish. And if you're looking at the dish, it was on the behind it on the left side. Looks like in front of the stealth, or the stealth stuff.
oh, the phase cannons. That's
Oh,
the ones
phase
that shoot
cannons.
Oh, okay, okay.
the yellow balls, rapid fire. So, and those are, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are like a balanced weapon. So as far as like shield and hull damage, they're closer to what you would expect from a phaser, except for they're burstier and have a longer cooldown.
Yes, but no. So they do. Think of it as like phaser damage, but not 35% additional hull damage. They probably have like a 15% additional hull damage. They're meant to be like bursty, so they do more damage. But then what balances that DPS is the fact that they actually will one have to recharge and they overheat, so you can't just keep pounding on them.
Yeah. Okay. So I was close.
Yeah. Yeah, my voice cut out. I don't know when it cut out. When I was talking. I think it just
Right
before
around.
killing started talking about bleed damage.
Yeah, so there was a question. I'm sorry, I don't recognize your icon. I gotta look and see who that was. There was a question about the torpedo bleed being changed. That was by Rastani,
Hmm.
and whether or not that would be addressed. And I basically explained the the shield meta versus armor meta, and why armor meta is better for a themed server, and it's important that we have bleed.
Yeah, no, the bleed
Also,
the bleed is
remember,
definitely staying. It's super important.
don't forget, Star Trek also had shield bleed through on torpedoes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do, and that's one of the main reasons why we brought it on, right? Whenever even the Galaxy class Enterprise, right? They're like, oh, the Warbird's shooting a torpedo. Everyone's bracing for impact, even though they're at full shields and everything. And then people are flying over
Lieutenants are
consoles.
flying through the.
Their consoles are flying. The EPS conduit in the rear exploded because of the photon. Like,
Yeah, don't forget all the rocks they had stored in the consoles for some reason and start
yes,
flying.
the rocks. Yeah, yeah. We should add that rock
Well,
mod.
the thing is, not every torpedo hits though.
No, and we have the AMS that's going to be able to intercept spatials. I don't know about the other torpedoes yet, if that's going to be a thing.
Still to be
and
determined. I'm trying to.
and you can dodge torpedoes. That's up to you whether
Yeah.
you want to build mobile enough to dodge torpedoes. So technically, they used to have an infinite lock-on range where they would circle you forever in beta, and then at some point in launch, we fixed that to where if you dodge a torpedo and it doubles back and you dodge it again, it'll fall off. But that's up to you whether you want to try to dodge those and
Could
build a ship
implement. So
that's
you could
mobile enough to do that, or if you want to just armor the front of your ship and have a quote unquote a torpedo catch and just embrace the torpedo damage. So like my factions thing, especially when farming NPCs, is we just have an area designated on our ship that has a lot of layers of armor, and instead of trying to avoid torpedoes and run the risk of them flying back, doing a 180 and hitting you in a sensitive spot like your thrusters or your shield controllers, things like that, we just accept that torpedo damage is the thing and armor the front of our ships appropriately and try to mitigate damage by taking it in spots that we've designated like and making it predictable.
What
If
is
you
the new?
gave photons and quantums hit points, they could be potentially shut down. Would it be possible to make them have a smaller explosion that based on health when it hits? So you could weaken
Not
them.
based on health that it hits. I'm trying to make them so that we can target them and shoot them. I'm running into issues with that setup. So if I can get it working, they will be targetable by using the new phaser defense turret. But if I can't, then they're not going to be. But so we'll have to figure something else out. But ideally, yes, I want you to be able to shoot them down.
Yeah.
Right?
And also
Not
have
one
long.
shot. Like you'll have to have like a ton of these like defense turrets, right? To make sure you can do enough hit points enough time to shoot these down. But ideally, but if I can't, then they'll just remain capped in the way they are.
Yeah,
Well, I
and
mean, even having like a 70% where you shoot 10 and 3 of them are shot down, but the other 7 hit. I think that would be pretty fair.
it would allow you to mitigate some of it, which would be
Yeah.
good. I think
That
Yeah, I
is
mean,
the ultimate plan, right?
and
It's just a
going
matter of
from
it
can
gives
we get
more
it done.
reason to have the point defense because if it doesn't do anything, nobody's going to be building it.
Oh yeah, it does a lot.
it's
The only
first,
thing that is going to be able to attack biologicals is the point defense. The phasers will no longer attack biologicals.
Yeah.
So that means if you do not have a point defense, someone can just fly up to your ship in their suit, be unopposed, and start
Well,
grinding your hull.
interior
This-
turrets
I-
can kill you pretty quick too.
Yeah, but you got to
transport-
manually load ammo into those. These don't require that, so it's just a different,
These also look better. They hide. Like I said, you can throw them in the roof, add them to your design, turn them on and off.
Yeah.
Interior
you
turrets
don't
are
want to be
freaking
in the
OP.
middle.
and they
Yeah.
do damage. So like early game, because they don't require like you'll be able to get them early game and be able to utilize them for that. So I mean, like against elite ships, it's not going to do any damage, but like
No.
early on.
Early game, they're
They
the meta. They're the meta weapon. Before you get phase cannons and stuff, that's what you want to use to fight stuff.
Probably good to fight those drones and stuff when they first come at you.
Hey, that's exactly what they're
Yeah,
meant
high
for.
rate of fire, lower energy drain than your standardized weapons. It's going to be, much more efficient, especially in those early stages where you don't have a ton of intermix in your uranium to burn, right?
Are they going to be super OP like the interior turrets, undodgeable and all that shit?
Yeah, you can't dodge a bullet. So yes, undodgeable.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, but you can't dodge a bullet.
No, the suit defense is their number one job, so they're going to be very good at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder because I always thought the interior turrets were way overpowered with their ability to lock target and track you. You should be able to go dodge a little bit.
Yeah, but suit scumming a ship is pretty with an elite grinder is pretty overpowered in itself. Like,
Yeah,
that's
is.
Yeah, because if you gain access, especially in PvP, if you gain access to someone's ship internals, you can make mincemeat at the inside of their ship by cutting their conveyor lines and stuff like that
Conveyor
in a
lines
matter
out.
of minutes. Yeah, or
Right, without them even knowing, right?
yeah, or if you just see a gyro and grind the block that the gyro is sitting on, that becomes a pinball in the internals of their ship, and now they're moving around with a gyro, just smashing at everything.
Yeah.
It can go south really fast for somebody who gets
Yeah,
ported.
the first time we were in a siege and we realised that the transport blockers weren't working, and suddenly Cardassians were transporting onto our ship, which was terrifying.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, that's another thing we're looking into is trying to get that transporter fixed.
Yeah.
But the original mod author doesn't do scripting, and he relies on a community to do stuff like that. So we'll have to use Patreon funds, pay for someone to go look at the code and make the adjustments and stuff like that. So another example of where all the money goes to for Patreon is fixing this stuff that
We can't
you know
script. Yeah.
that we can't do. If it's like basic stuff, we obviously try. We don't want to spend the money, right? We try to utilize it in better places, but obviously if we can't, then we have
And
to rely on
we've
that.
managed to get a lot done in house, but there are just certain things that are out of our scope. So
And that's why you try to find new people to bring in house.
Yes, well, we're always recruiting programmers, and if anyone knows C# and would like to give us a hand, we are always more than willing to talk to you to see what we can do, because there's always many ways you can contribute, right? Like all the staff, right, that help us on a daily and do tickets and work on all this stuff on the side. They all do this. It's not like it's not a job. We don't get paid. We're all volunteers, right? If anything, it costs us money and time that to do this stuff. So, thanks, and we appreciate all of them and their hard work. And even people like Dema, where not he didn't necessarily need to offer to say, oh yeah, I'll build 25 NPC ships and theme them and make them, deck them out accordingly with killing so that we can do all this. Like Dema's not an admin, he's doing this as a community member. That's how way he's contributing, or he feels he can contribute. So yeah, there's always different ways you can contribute. Sometimes it's just nice for dollars because you got to buy hardware and stuff like that, but sometimes you can contribute in other ways.
yeah, I mean, Demo's done a ton of work on the NPCs. Like I'm done a small amount in comparison to him. I mean, basically, given him, me and Sargi have given him guidelines for the rulings, and I've helped him with some of the internals. But as far as the frames and making them aesthetically pleasing, which I don't think you showed any of those off, but some of the new NPCs are amazing looking. Like they're great.
Yeah, that's gonna be for part 2 AMA. We'll do another one before we launch, obviously, to let you know like we're all on track for our timeline. This is what the final stuff is looking like, to look forward to and that kind of stuff. So we'll hold another one of these and to go through that at a later point, show off some of the NPCs, how they work and all that.
There's like a suite of like 30 plus NPCs that are being worked on. Only a small portion of those are completely done and ready so far, but you can expect to see Bajoran ships around Bajor, Romulan ships around Romulan. We've got some Gorn ships, Breen, Dominion ships. There's all kinds of Crinum Imperium. There's a bunch of really cool stuff coming, and also a lot of the Cardassian Union ships are being repurposed for Cardassian NPCs. So
Sweet. All right. So yeah, if you guys have any further questions, don't hesitate to let me know. I'm going to keep open the Town Hall questions only channel. So if you want to add additional questions in there as you think of them, I'll be perusing from time to time so I can maybe address them. If you have any questions directly on how you can contribute, either community in general or financially, let me know directly, and then we can talk more. But it's been talking for 3 hours and 11 minutes. I need to head out to get some things. I got company coming over tonight.
Drink some goddamn water.
Sorry?
Drink some water. Your throat's gonna kill you.
Yeah, I know. I actually I had a whole cold coffee I made myself. I polished the whole thing. It's very 32 ounce. But yeah, I appreciate all your time and your, sticking with the community. I appreciate you guys, just being part of the community and playing and helping us along and sticking with us through the bugs and, iterations and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys are as stoked and happy as I am with these new developments and changes that are coming. I think it's really going to give us a whole new breath of life into the server that which I think will sustain itself.
Also, if anybody has questions, I know that me and Este are open to DM from you guys. So if you have something you think about, like after the meeting, you're like, oh, I should have asked this. Feel free to hit us up, or go into recent feedback update because that's a channel that a lot of us look at, on a regular.
All right. Well, take care, guys. I'm signing off. Have fun.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, yeet.
Woo!